The Health Secretary is warning NHS waiting lists in England will not start to fall for at least 2 years and may double during that time.
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock on Wednesday, February the 9th. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn and Isabel.
Leading the news this morning, Sajid Javid unveils the NHS recovery plans, pledging to cut waiting times to fewer than 12 months by 2025. But does the government's plan go far enough? Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
The Prime Minister announced a mini reshuffle, appointing Jacob Rees-Mogg as Brexit Opportunities Minister. Is he the right man to unleash the UK's full potential on the world stage?
Queen of the Brits, Adele, crowned Artist of the Year following the Brit Awards decision to remove gendered categories.
We'll explain how Adele wade into the culture war, and at 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by singer Talia Storm.
Hello there, very good morning to you. The Health Secretary is warning NHS waiting lists in England will not start to fall for at least 2 years, and they may double during that time. He warned that the backlog may get worse despite COVID pressure residing. Our political correspondent Tom Harwood joins us live now from Downing Street with the latest on this. Tom.
Well, this is where the £12 billion that national insurance tax hike is meant to go. This is about initially clearing that backlog, but not clearing it for quite some time. Some MPs were pretty aghast yesterday when they heard that the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, was pretty candid in saying that the waiting lists may well rise for quite some time yet before they can start to fall. He said that no level of investment would get them to fall in short order. In many ways, the rise that we are expecting over the next couple of years is already baked in. 10 million patients forewent treatment during the various lockdowns associated with the pandemic, and many of those people, it's unsure quite how many, but they will be coming forward for treatment over the next couple of years. So this package of measures, whether it's taxis for people to travel around the country to go to areas of low pressure from areas of high pressure, or indeed the ability to train new staff, this takes time, and it's now clear that the Department of Health and Social Care is saying this will not be cleared until 2025, after the next general election.
OK, and let's talk about this mini reshuffle that happened yesterday, Tom, or the he shuffle as it's being dubbed, because it involved so few women. Jacob Rees-Mogg being moved into a sort of sideways new position to kind of bring out the full potential of Brexit. What did you make of that?
Well, it was interesting. Since the resignation of Lord Frost, there had been a bit of a Brexit-shaped hole around the cabinet table. Of course, his responsibilities went across to Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, but to have an advocate for what can be done with the new freedoms that Brexit provides was missing around the cabinet table, quite frankly. And having Jacob Rees-Mogg singularly focused on that issue is an important step. Of course, we all know that Brexit isn't a policy proposal in and of itself. What Brexit does is gives the UK government a number of new levers which they can choose to pull or not choose to pull. We could leave the European Union and leave all the law exactly as it was before, or we could choose to change some of it. And this is a real signal that we will be choosing to change some of those European laws that had been imposed upon the UK over the last 30, 40 years, really, and try and find the areas in which the law could be streamlined, the regulations could be rolled back, the productive potential of the United Kingdom could be raised. It's a mammoth task, of course, because we'd been entwined in EU law for quite some time, and indeed picking out the bits that are necessary to stay and the bits that should be swept away and that hold our country back is a painstaking task. And clearly the Prime Minister there is seeing Jacob Rees-Mogg as someone who can be across detail, and that is very important for this role.
Tom, thank you very much indeed for the update. What else is happening on this Wednesday morning? Here's the news.
Police have started cracking down on truckers protesting vaccine mandates in the Canadian capital of Ottawa. Vehicles have been immobilised and thousands of litres of fuel have been seized as the protest approaches the end of its second week. Kyle Kemper, the brother of the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, told GB News the movement is peaceful.
They try and slander the entire movement. But the reality on the streets, I've been talking to these truckers, I've been talking to people, they're cleaning up the streets, crime is down, they're sharing, there's community, there's dancing, there's high vibration, there's music, and they just want our freedom back. They want the true North, strong and free is what Canada is known as.
Documents reveal the Foreign Office has been a target of what they're calling a serious cyber security incident. It's not clear who was responsible or the effects of the attack, but security firm BAE Systems were called in at a cost of just under £470,000 to rectify the situation.
Average rents across the UK are now nearly £750 a year higher than they were at the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Analysis by the property website Zoopla shows the demand for rental properties, combined with a lack of supply, is driving prices up.
More than 1 in 6 speeding fines in England and Wales were cancelled in the 12 months to March last year. The RAC says 400,000 cases were dismissed due to reasons including faulty speed cameras and a lack of resources to bring cases to court.
Many British families are cancelling their half-term breaks to Spain due to strict vaccine rules. All travellers to mainland Spain and the Canary Islands aged 12 and over have to be double vaccinated.
The biggest event in British music happened last night. The Brit Awards made its annual return to the O2 in London.
Yeah, all eyes were on Adele on both the red carpet and the stage, whilst other stars like Ed Sheeran and Dua Lipa were some of the biggest names to pick up gongs.
Well, showbiz reporter Ellie Phillips has all you need to know on this. What did you make of it overall, Ellie?
I loved it. I mean, for me, it's just great because for me, the Brits is everything. It's music, it's fashion, it's live TV. Things can go wrong, things can go so right, and there's always surprises along the way. I loved it. It felt like we were back.
OK, so let's talk about Adele. Of course, she's been in the headlines because she cancelled her Vegas residency.
I told you she wouldn't have been there unless she knew she was getting
Well,
awards.
you were so right. And her love life was all up in, people were speculating that she was heartbroken. Well, there she was last night, winning 3 out of the 4 awards she was nominated for. Best Album, Best Single, Best Artist.
Yeah.
And she had a big rock on her finger.
Oh, this ring. And now this ring was insane. So she's wearing it on her wedding ring finger. It's this huge a teardrop cut diamond that it's just, you can't take your eyes off it. The minute I saw it, I was like, wow, OK, either that's an engagement ring or you want people to think it's an engagement ring, because you do not wear a ring like that on that finger unless you want people to
She
ask
hasn't
those
said anything
questions.
about it, though,
She
so
said
we're all
nothing
speculating.
This is speculation at the moment. But she did wear it throughout the night. She changed outfits 3 times. She changed rings 3 times, but that one stayed in place throughout the whole evening. So that kind of adds to it. And I actually had a gemologist called Olivia Lando from The Clear Cut. She contacted me to say she estimates it's worth £500,000, and it's a 7-cut diamond. But I've since found out it's a Lorraine Schwartz ring, which means it's basically doubled in value, because if it's a Lorraine Schwartz, it's like that just adds on so much more value.
So that's the bling and the glamour, but let's talk about the awards that she won. She was the first artist to win an award in this gender-neutral category.
Yes. OK, so
And she didn't seem to appreciate it.
She obviously appreciates the acknowledgement, but she did make a statement. She basically said, look, I understand why the awards have gone gender neutral, but I'm really proud of being a woman and being a female artist, and I'm proud of us. I love being a woman. And I think that was so great of her to say, because I personally don't understand why the awards have gone gender neutral. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we're at a point yet in society where you can pit a man and a woman against each other. Take it outside of the music industry. There are so many things and adversities that women face and that men don't in their day-to-day lives. And so to say that you're putting a woman against a counterpart, well, they're not even Stevens at all from the get-go at that point. So I think it was unnecessary. But the reason they put this in place, they scrapped male and female, is because artists like Sam Smith, who are non-binary, said that there was no space for them in the awards.
But couldn't they have created their own non-binary category for the likes of Sam Smith, which he would then automatically have won, because there'd be nobody else yet in that category, which would allow us to see and showcase and celebrate his talent, but without taking away all that space for these, as you described, female artists that have now not got even the joy of being nominated.
Honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things about the Brit Awards is, and any big award ceremonies, is it's often not the winners, it is the nominees. That recognition alone means so much to them and can help their careers so much. And of this new category, this Artist of the Year, 3 of the 5 were men. So there are 3 spaces there that women could have had and had their name up in lights and, you know, feel that sense of, you know, recognition and just like celebrating what they've achieved. So I totally agree with you with that one. And also, just put this in context as well, out of the 20 most decorated Brit Award winners of all time, 5 of 15 are women. So I don't think we're at a point yet where we can say, oh no, we're all the same now, even Stevens. Like, your own results show that that's just not the case yet.
Although Adele doing her best to sort that out, isn't she?
She is.
Heaven forbid the men might just be better.
Oh, you did not go there.
Forbid.
Well, I love the fact that the first time they are pitted against each other, a woman has won. Just saying.
Yeah.
But she's on the front of all the papers, as you say, looking absolutely gorgeous, wading straight into the culture wars.
So this was the first year an all-female group won Band of the Year, and that was?
That was last year.
Oh.
So that was last year. This is what I was saying. Yeah, no, I know. That was last year. This is one of the points is to say that last year Little Mix was the first year an all-female group won Bands of the Year. That was just last year.
Yes.
This year it went to a mixed band. So, you know, OK, yeah, kind of getting there. But of the awards last night, there were actually 9 went to women and 6 went to men. So, yeah, the balance was in that favour.
I just think it's pathetic we're sitting talking about here, point scoring like that, who just... Surely the music should count. It's just the music we're interested in.
This is so true.
Yeah.
You've got to put that in the context of what women have got to go through to get to the point where their music is being heard on that same level as men, where they're going to get those deals, get that PR, you know, get that push from a label. They're navigating a whole different set of circumstances than a man. So I just don't think it's right that you can pit them against each other at this point. Don't take that space away from women.
A man was hosting.
A man was hosting. Mo Gilligan, the first ever black man to host the awards in A New Step Forward, and all the presenters on the night in terms of the official presenters, whether it's him on stage, Maya Jama was in the audience, you had Clara Amfo doing the voiceover, they were all black as well. So that was a big step in that direction, as well as the red carpet hosts and the YouTube hosts. They decided to have all black presenters for that.
He had a little dig at Boris Johnson, didn't he?
Did. You know what? He didn't do badly. He wasn't amazing, but that dig was so great. He basically said, we know you like to party, Boris. We know you like a cheese board. How's the Dairy Lee? We know you're watching. Get involved.
And you can't talk about the Brits without a sort of hiccup or a slip. We, of course, had Madonna once upon a time falling over. Were there any accidents or mishaps?
Yes, yeah, one really big one. And bless her heart, Anne-Marie came out and she was doing this collaboration with 2 other artists. And she came out on stage, climbed down about 5 stairs, and her foot just went, her ankle went 90 degrees to the right. She fell straight onto her knees.
Oh, bless her.
Do you know what? Fair play to her. She got straight up and just delivered the most amazing performance.
As if it was part of her act.
I mean, it clearly wasn't part of the act. The ankle went full 90
and
degrees.
her face, she did do a sort of bit of a, like, oh, no
She
face.
had that moment of, like, oh, what have I done? But she just then gone, no, do you know what? I'm going to carry on. She absolutely smashed it. And you know what? The comeback was better than the setback.
Oh, well done, Anne-Marie.
And what about yourself? Was there a tune last night? Was there something you thought, yeah, I really loved that song and I'm glad it got the recognition?
So, of the songs that were performed, or the performances, none that were performed won specific awards for those songs, because Adele actually sang I Drank Wine, and she won the single for Easy On Me. That was a brilliant performance. And I know she missed Vegas, and she came out and did this incredible performance. She sat on a grand piano, and it was just flawless. And you're like, why couldn't you?
Really?
It was a very odd opening performance, where he was joined with another band, and they started screaming a lot throughout it, which isn't something you really expect to hear when you think of Ed Sheeran performing, but then he performed a solo at the end, which was just beautiful rendition of one of his songs. And then Dave closed the show, and he was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. There was fire everywhere. He played this guitar solo with fire coming out of the guitar, and it was just like a huge spectacle.
See, the turn-off of the night for me was the performance by Little Sims, and that's when I realised I'm officially old. But she won my heart when she took her mama up on stage to win her award. How sweet.
Little Sim's mum stole
Wasn't
the
she
show.
amazing?
She literally stole the show. She could not have been happier for her. She took that award. She was like, this is my award. And you know what? And Little Sims wanted to share that with her mum, which is like a really, really special moment.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah, that was so lovely.
Ellie, thanks very much indeed.
Thank
We'll hear
you.
from you again throughout the programme, and as more stories emerge from the Brits and what happened last night. Thank you very much indeed. Looking ahead, singer-songwriter Talia Storm made quite the entrance as she arrived at the Brits, and at 9 o'clock here we'll be joined by her to go through more of the best moments from last night's awards.
I think she forgot to put her outfit on.
She'll catch her death of cold.
You would believe how much that would have cost, that tiny bit of fabric. Thierry Mugler, that was.
Very good. Coming up, we take a look at the energy regulators' admittance that they should have been tougher on suppliers.
Actual regulation needs to be tougher. We need a retail sector that's more resilient and more able to deal with the kind of shock that we've seen. And to be clear, Chair, we accept that had we done that earlier, this would have been better for customers.
Interesting. Well, that was the Ofgem CEO, Jonathan Brearley. Is it too little too late, we're asking? We'll have more on that in a moment. But first of all, let's get your Wednesday forecast.
It's going to turn cold.
Ooh.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern and here's your latest forecast. It's going to stay cloudy and mild in the south today with brighter weather but colder conditions elsewhere and further blustery showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The weather front that stuck around yesterday across northern England, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland is now finally sinking south. That means there's a zone of cloudy and occasionally damp weather affecting Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia first thing before eventually that pushes into southern counties of England. For a time, some sunshine ahead of that, but it does cloud over in the far southeast. Meanwhile, brighter skies follow for much of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and for Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of keen winds and heavy showers in places. Those showers falling as sleet and snow over hills, but perhaps even to lower levels at times for the north and northwest of Scotland, where it will feel cold. Highs of 3 to 5 Celsius, but when you add on that wind, you can take off a few degrees for the feels-like temperature. Whilst it's mild in the far south, 12 or 13 Celsius, but increasingly damp actually as we go into the evening. Outbreaks of rain on and off, particularly for southwest England and the far south. Meanwhile, clearer spells follow for much of Wales, the Midlands, and for the rest of the north of the UK. Clear spells overnight mean that there'll be a few icy patches first thing Thursday. So watch out for those slippery surfaces where we've seen showers come and go through the night, and some significant snow building up over the Highlands by this stage. Also, a very windy start to the day for the north of Scotland. Gales or even severe gales for a time before an area of low pressure moves away. Once that's out of the way, actually many places seeing some good spells of sunshine. Further showers in the west and northwest, but it is going to be increasingly settled for Friday. Plenty of sunshine around, just a few showers still in the north and west, and feeling colder for all of us with temperatures at around 6 to 8 Celsius.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
(20 past 6) on this Wednesday morning. We're going to turn our attention again to the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, it's been revealed that energy costs for the average household in the UK will increase by almost £700 this year. And the industry regulator Ofgem was yesterday quizzed in front of MPs. Our national reporter Paul Hawkins has taken a look at the story.
Oh, Bulb is the fastest growing energy company.
Oh, I heard that too.
This was one of 29 failed energy suppliers over the past year. The victims of sky-high wholesale gas prices, which they couldn't pass on because of the price cap.
People's Energy believes in affordable energy for all.
Some, however, were not financially strong enough to deal with market forces. Yesterday, the boss of the energy regulator said they should have checked that.
Financial regulation needs to be tougher. We need a retail sector that's more resilient and more able to deal with the kind of shock that we've seen. And to be clear, Chair, we accept that had we done that earlier, this would have been better for customers.
4 million customers were left without a supplier, and now we're picking up the cost of protecting them through our energy bills.
You're thinking it might be 200 million?
Something like that. Now, those figures aren't figures that we finished with. We're still going through those, but roughly of that order of magnitude. But the vast majority of the cost has been down to re-hedging people when they move from a failed supplier to another supplier, and that's about 85% of the cost that we're seeing.
The average household will have to pay almost £700 a year extra on their energy bills after Ofgem raised the price cap last week, and there could be more pain to come.
The market really is looking at some factors which are fairly binary. And your member has already mentioned the Russia-Ukraine situation. That will clearly have an impact on supply, and that will clearly have an impact on price. So I'd caution against any projections, but if we just look at the forward market, so what the traders think right now, then it does look like there's upward pressure on prices.
Meanwhile, more and more of us, many working full-time, are having to make difficult choices. 1 million adults across the UK went an entire day without eating over the past month because they were unable to put food on the table, according to the Food Foundation. The charity says it's due to rising energy bills and food prices, plus the loss of the £20 universal credit uplift. The government announced last week a loan of £200 from October via energy companies, plus a council tax rebate in England equating to £150 per household. But critics say it's nowhere near enough. Mortgage costs are also rising, and still to come is the national insurance rise in April, plus the freeze in income tax brackets, meaning millions more will start paying tax or pay the higher rate. Political choices, which the government is sticking to. For now, Paul Hawkins, GB News.
Paul, out and about around the country talking about the cost of living crisis, but we often ask you for your views. Your views make our news, and we have been out and about and speaking to people speaking to us, sending in video clips. You're going to hear now from Barry Davis from Chorley in Lancashire and Paul Sparrowhawk, who's from Oxfordshire, and they've got various subjects that they want to get off their chest.
Good morning, Eamonn, Isabel. Yes, my concern is being a pensioner. Concern is the heating bills. The cost of everything seems to be rising. And the government are putting more money into the illegal entrance into this country. What is it costing? 4.7 million a day to house them, plus probably another 1.3 million a day to feed them, support staff, security, 6 million a day. And what are pensioners doing? Can't heat and eat. We have to choose. The priorities are wrong. Not worried about cakes or drinks in number 10. I hope Camilla does become Queen Consort. She probably deserves it, putting up with what she has to. But our real problem or concerns is the money wasted, given away, thrown at people that shouldn't really be in this country, that are coming here illegally. 6 million a day. Plus out 42 million a week. It's a lot of money. That's a hell of a lot of money. Thank you.
Cost of living is getting out of hand. It's not just fuel and energy. It's everything we buy. We're being ripped off by the supermarkets. Lock, stock and barrel. Their packaging stays the same. The contents keep shrinking. All it is one supermarket competing against another, trying to get you through the doors. Then they're just ripping your money off of you. When you get back home, you've got nothing left. It can't go on like this. We're being exploited left, right and centre. Sugar, milk, eggs have all become standard weights over the years. Every other item is bigger packaging, smaller contents. Something got to change because we just can't afford to keep going like it.
Paul is absolutely right. And they think you're fools from that point of view. They think you can't see that you're getting less for more, or even if they're not increasing the price, you're still getting less, which means it does cost more. But it's just interesting, both Barry and Paul there, those are subjects that are important to them, and we're keen to air what is important to you. So keep all that coming in. You can tweet us at GBNews.
And just a little hint, if you are going to send it in, record your video this way, not this way, because then it looks better on the TV. A little tip.
Yeah, I think it does look better. I agree with you.
Yeah. But we're delighted to actually have, as opposed to just emails and tweets, which we love, to get some videos. Do send in your videos with us.
We're going to have a cracking newspaper review coming up very shortly. Baroness Kate Hoey and sports broadcaster Mike Parry. They're going to be looking inside the papers, and we'll be back with them after this. Don't go away. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Let's have a look at the front pages you're waking up to today. We begin with the Daily Telegraph. It writes that the NHS waiting lists will rise no matter what level of investment or reform the government is able to provide.
The Mirror is leading on BP's finances, revealing that despite many families failing to pay their bills, they've made a £10 billion profit.
Here's the Times. It claims that the Prime Minister has been warned by MPs that his plan to clear the NHS backlog is not ambitious enough.
Also featuring a photo there of Adele after she sweeped the Brit Awards last night.
Conservative MPs have been accused of making the debate on net zero and climate change a cultural issue, according to The Guardian, whatever that means.
The Daily Mail asks what the £12 billion cash injection to the NHS has done, if the backlog will continue for years to come. It also looks at Adele's supposed engagement ring.
Well, you couldn't miss it, really. It would poke your eye out,
it's dreamy.
as they would say,
It's beautiful.
wouldn't it? Let's get inside those newspapers. We welcome Mike Parry, radio broadcaster, and Kate Hoey, former Labour MP, now life peer in the House of Lords. Very good to see you both.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Good. Kate, we're going to go to the front page of the Telegraph. The Health Secretary says that there's nothing that can be done about the NHS backlog. It may actually get worse.
Yes, and he's been very honest, actually. He's saying reality is that no matter how much money is put in, and we have put huge amounts of money, all governments have, but as a combination of both the COVID situation, but also just generally the way people now, medical science has moved on, more people are being treated, and it doesn't really matter that the wait lists are going to continue and won't ease until 2024. And he's suggesting, there are some good things in the report, because it's talking about, a lot more instant service, one-stop shops, people being able to go in and get everything at once rather than going from one place to another to get their blood tests and then to wait and all of that. So, but, I think the reality is, and I think maybe that's what we need to be realistic about, the health service is a huge, huge institution with thousands of people working for it. It's done a terrific job over during the pandemic, but it's not going to get better quickly. But then also, I think there's a big debate going to be about whether there's some people pushing very hard for people who take private care, that they should get some form of tax relief, because in theory they're taking something away. But the reality is, I wonder about that, because the reality is it's the same. It's going to be doctors and consultants who are doing
working
extra
privately,
or working privately. So at least there is a recognition that money isn't just the answer.
Well, money is the front page, Mike, of the Mail, and they're saying despite the national insurance rise, which is coming our way, waiting lists will keep rising. And is that all we get for 12 billion quid?
Honestly, the NHS needs a completely radical overhaul, the whole thing. You can't just keep throwing money at it, because every time there's a problem in the NHS, some politician announces will put another 12 billion in, the national insurance, hike in tax and all that kind of stuff. Now, the story that Kate's just been talking about, and touching on whether private medicine should be allowed, in 2014, 28% of all money in this country, government money, was spent on the NHS. That is expected to go to 40% by 2024, 1 decade later. It can't keep on going like that. We've got to radically overhaul the NHS. The Telegraph story that Kate talked about was also based on a piece by the Health Secretary, Sajid David, on a commentary piece inside the Telegraph, in which he says the third way we will make progress is by radically rethinking and redesigning how services are delivered. That's got to come sooner than later. Otherwise, the country will go bankrupt by trying to get into these waiting lists, which are never, ever going to be removed.
But there's a reason why no administration ever tackles the real root and branch reform
because
of the
it's
NHS.
long term.
Well, because the general public are so sentimentally attached to the NHS, and it's like the sacred cow.
If ever there was any suggestion of anything being cut in your local hospital or your local doctor, that was what people came out and got very
You can't win an
about.
election
So,
and reform the NHS at the same time. So you just continue with this absolute juggernaut that is just a black hole of cash, just to please the electorate.
I totally agree. We've seen figures in the last 2 or 3 weeks of £8 and £9 billion being wasted on the NHS ordering stuff that they don't eventually use, or it's not fit for purpose. When Kate Bingham from the private sector was given the job of rolling out the vaccine, it was brilliantly efficient. So why don't we bring other areas of the private sector, don't have to be in health, they can just be in business, like Kate Bingham was, and get them to address, get somebody like Lord Sugar in and say, you're now the czar of the NHS, you know how to make things work, you're a great businessman, make the NHS work and give us value for money.
And isn't it funny how you can pour in all this endless amounts of money and yet the nurses never get paid anymore?
Absolutely.
And it all seems to line the pockets of the managers of these hospitals. And you'd be attracting more people to work in hospitals if you paid our nurses better.
I was smiling at this announcement that Sajid David wants 15,000 new workers to the NHS. What, are these all the workers they let go? Are these all, where suddenly is he getting 15,000 people to work within the the NHS.
We have to bring him in from overseas, probably.
Yes, of course they will.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they'll do.
You know, because they're talented. Oh, on the insurance, by the way, that Kate also touched on, that was scrapped in 97. Relief on tax for private medicine, scrapped in 97 as the first move of New Labour, you know, Gordon Brown and Tony Blair. But when you say, where would the doctors come from? The doctors work overtime in the private sector, if you see what I mean, because their incentive is they get paid better to do it. So I would go back to that. I would say there's some great, you know, private institution, hospitals and companies in this country. Why not let them be used by the NHS at a price, obviously?
I suppose everybody has a view about saving money until they're in the back of an ambulance and then anything goes and everybody's incredibly thankful, you know,
and,
just for
I
what's
mean,
there.
There was a story of the recent head of National Health England, you know, being when he went, getting this huge payoff. But anyway, at least, I mean, I think, to be fair, the article by Sahid Javid that Mike mentioned is pretty honest about the problem.
It is honest, but
and says what they're going to do, but whether it actually happens...
There's nothing new in it. Absolutely nothing new. When I said long-term, Isabel, what I meant was it is going to be a long-term project redesigning the NHS, because it's been with us since 1948, hasn't it? You know what I mean? How do you change it all? So no short-term government of 5 years can embark on a 10 or 15-year project because it don't get any votes for them after the first 5 years.
Kate, what does this headline on the front of The Guardian mean? Conservative MPs accused of trying to drag climate fight into a new culture war. What does that actually mean?
Well, I would say it's a very typical sort of Guardian-ist headline.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
War. I was just saying, Mike, earlier, I mean, someone defined for me what they mean by the culture war. But anyway, what this is about is that The Guardian have got very upset that there are some Conservative MPs and peers who set up something called the Net Zero Scrutiny Group, or it's now called Net Zero Watch, and they're going to be... basically, they believe that whatever you think about climate change and how it's come about, that the way that we're pushing towards a net zero policy in such a short time is going to lead to all sorts of problems with energy costs, as we're seeing, and that in the end the poorest will pay. And you know, I think what this is really about is, are we prepared to have a really serious, genuine talk about climate change, or is it one of those things that is just now assumed that we all think the same?
Yes, but it depends what you mean by a really serious talk. A really serious talk to you is let's tone things down, let's save a bit of money on this, and a really serious talk to someone who's a climate warrior on this is, well, let's get more serious about the climate, because we haven't had anybody in here who's been eco-aware that have said, yeah, it's a good idea, I think we're going too fast and we should tone it down so that hard-pressed families get a few quid in their pocket. None of them.
Yeah, well, actually, we had a climate campaigner on yesterday saying that the two things aren't mutually exclusive, that the working class and those that are the worst off aren't necessarily in favour of environmental campaigning. What I thought was interesting about this story is this new group that's being formed, very familiar faces, particularly basically the ones that were the ERG, the European Research Group, the hardline Brexiteers that were really, keeping the government to their promises throughout the Brexit debate.
It's led by Steve Baker, who was one of the key pushing behind the scenes a lot. I mean, he wasn't sort of public focused much, but he's involved with it. But to be honest, it's really not a story. But it's a kind of I don't know. And Mike agrees.
I can't quite make it out. I totally agree, and I agree with Eamonn that if you in any way try to be moderate or let's think again about climate change, you are immediately attacked as being a denier. Now, I'm not a climate change denier. I agree that the world is changing, but I don't think it's necessarily because of all the reasons put forward about human misbehaviour, about cows in fields.
Plastics.
Yes, I agree. I agree it's part of it, but can I just say, without trying to be smart, there are other things like meteorological reasons, like sunspots in the universe, which cyclically come and go. And for instance, when the Romans were here, we were able to grow vineyards along Hadrian's Wall, OK? So it was very warm up in the northeast of England. It's now very cold in the northeast of England. At one time, we used to light bonfires on a frozen River Thames, OK? Because it was very, very cold. What I'm saying is we go through climatic cycles.
No
I think we're going through
that,
one.
But you can't deny that there's all these man-made
I'm not denying it. I am not denying that for a moment. What I'm saying is there needs to be a sense of balance as to how we approach it without getting fanatical about it.
And I think the public sometimes feel that, we are very good at doing the kind of things that are going to help, supposedly. But, other countries, while we're sort of cutting back on all of the things that make life quite nice. I mean, the idea that at some stage we won't be able to have open fires, things like that. When other countries are carrying on building
new generating stations,
well, I'm not
burning
up my
coal.
open
China
fire.
opens a new coal-fired power station a month.
Yeah, and the irony is we import a lot of stuff,
of course
coal,
we do.
and it's ridiculous. We're not digging our own, but we import it, and gas and oil. Meanwhile, it'll hardly surprise anybody that BP, British Petroleum, rejects a call for a windfall tax as profits hit 8-year high of, let's get this right, $12.8 billion.
Yeah, a lot of money. However, I was listening to the head of BP yesterday who pointed out that last year they lost $20 billion because of the downturn in the demand for energy, obviously, in the world. And now that there's a resurgence of demand, that's how the price is going up, and they're making excess profits. But once again, I would have to say that the dash for net zero has got to be a much, much more balanced approach. And BP are contributing massively in the changeover from fossil fuels to natural power. They're investing heavily in, windmills, in solar power, and that costs an awful lot more money. Now, I know you're going to say I'm a capitalist pig when I say they don't make as much money from solar power and from windmills as they do from fossil fuels, but BP is owned by investors, it's owned by shareholders, it's owned by pension funds, and therefore they have to protect the solidity of their company.
Should point
it's
out,
also run by a man called Looney. Yes, his name's Bernard Looney. He is the chief executive.
We should point out the calls for the windfall tax are from the Labour Party at the moment. There's no Conservative calls for that at the moment, which is interesting to
absolutely. But again, this comes a day after we were told 6 new licences are going to be issued now to get more gas and oil out of the North Sea. Somebody's finally, the lights come on in somebody's head that you can't suddenly go from where we are now to net zero without gradually reducing the amount of fossil fuels, because 50% of all the energy in this country still comes from gas or oil, and we can't just suddenly cut it off.
Well, I think it's one of the it's very easy to say just let's tax the multinationals. I mean, that figure, Mike, you said about their loss.
20 billion last year.
But 12 billion profit sounds a lot of money.
Yes.
But it's also very, very important that they are able to keep investing. Otherwise, the whole thing about net zero and everything won't happen anyway. So I think we need a realistic, sensible discussion on this. But it won't happen because Labour will keep calling for it. I still think we should take VAT off energy bills.
Okay. That would only be a very small,
Yeah, I know, but it's something very simple that helps people.
Yeah. It gives the image, doesn't it, that things are going down rather than up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure you were both glued to the Brits last night on ITV. Adele, very proud she was a woman. There's a whole row about the gender-neutral Artist of the Year. Marion says, on your views on this, good there is a gender-neutral Artist of the Year, but there should also be Men of the Year, Woman of the Year, Child of the Year. I think Marion's missing the point really of this. What else have you got?
Arbalete has said on Twitter, good for Adele, gender-neutral awards are just stupid. And One Urban says, I have to say, good on her. I love being a woman too. No gender-neutral for me.
Keep the views coming in at GB News. Now, you might remember here on The Breakfast Show, we talked about the mysterious deaths of tens of thousands of crabs and lobsters. This was on Teesside's coastline.
Yeah, so the government have come to the conclusion this is all to do with a large algae bloom that's caused the deaths. But those in the fishing industry have rejected this conclusion. Our North East of England reporter, Rachel Sweeney, has been looking into it.
Fishermen have dismissed the government's concluded investigation into the deaths of tens of thousands of crabs and lobsters. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs says toxin-producing algal blooms are to blame. But the North East Fishing Collective says that's utter rubbish, and they've paid for an independent investigation.
We got the CFAS chemical analyses, and I went through that, and CFAS had done a fairly good job on analysing crab samples, a little bit of water and a little bit of sediment sample for a whole range of chemicals. The majority of those chemicals were present at levels of less than 1 milligram to the litre. Some chemicals were present at 10 or less milligrams to the litre, and one chemical called pyridine was there in the impacted crabs in the impact area at levels of up to 430 milligrams to the litre.
And this is something the National Federation of Fishermen's Associations wants looking into.
I think the independent report that's been produced makes some interesting comparisons. Particularly, I thought the comparison with Cornwall, with crab from Cornwall, which shows much lower levels of pyridine, well, that needs explaining.
DEFRA ruled out dredging, sewage, chemical pollution and undersea cabling. A spokesperson said, "Our sampling established that no pyridine was present in the water or sediment samples we collected, but was detected in crab tissue from both impacted areas and non-impacted areas elsewhere in the country." As such, any levels detected in crab tissue are likely to be linked to biological processes and not necessarily from the environment. Mr. Dear Jones believes the deaths began at Teesside Freeport, the site hailed as of key importance in the government's levelling up agenda.
It is now being geared up to take bigger ships, so they're having to dredge the channels deeper than they have ever been dredged before, to get the bigger ships in, and they may well be also dredging dockside sites in order to make berths for ships bigger than they've ever had in before. They don't know when this is going to damn well stop, these fishermen, so that's the root of their frustration. They're sitting there, they're paying for the maintenance of the boat, they've paid their licences to fish for the year, and they can't fish and they can't sell anything. And it's all dying in front of them.
The fishing community is now calling for a halt to dredging operations. DEFRA's investigation is concluded, but the independent investigation continues. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
Thanks for that, Rachel, and we'll keep ongoing with that story just to see how things develop with it.
OK, now, the Chinese tennis player Peng Shuai says there's been a huge misunderstanding over a post in which she claimed she was forced into having sexual relations with a former Chinese party leader.
Shuai made the social media post last year and then disappeared, sparking international concern. But now she has spoken out and says she never alleged she suffered a sexual assault. Many people are concerned that she's been forced to retract her initial statement.
Well, it comes as the UK and other countries continue a diplomatic boycott over the Winter Olympics in Beijing. Former Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan-Smith is currently in isolation, but he spoke to our London reporter Alice Porter about the issue.
China is a dictatorial, brutal state committing genocide on the Uyghur, slave labour in Tibet and others, cracking down and organ harvesting of people like the Falun Gong and the Christians, breaking an international treaty, cracking down on people in Hong Kong, arresting them on trumped-up charges, putting them inside for a long period of time. It's taken over the South China Seas against the UN. It cheats on all the World Trade Organization rules. It's being taken to the WTO court. It threatens Taiwan on a daily basis. I mean, how much more do you want to know? This is a country that is brutal. So when she comes forward and makes a statement correcting her previous statement, which one do you really want to believe? In my view, I'm going to believe the original statement because that was said not under duress. Everything since then is almost certainly she's been lent on. There are lots of ways to lean on somebody like her, and I'm sure they've been doing it. They are past masters at it.
Hasn't this situation with Peng Shuai, hasn't it raised some quite serious questions about the International Olympic Committee's handling of it? I mean, they very much seem to be sort of playing down concerns about her disappearance.
What was the Olympic Committee doing, giving the Winter Olympics, for example, to Beijing? I mean, it's an absurdity. I'm told there may even be some have been some gerrymandering in terms of the details over the original vote, but that is for a later release. There is some quite interesting documentation that evidences that there were some problems, but that notwithstanding, you know, they kowtow to China, and you'll see lots of American and British companies doing much the same thing. And China, meanwhile, is going to try and get a publicity stunt as the host of the Olympic Games. Most countries, the governments have now boycotted those games, including the UK, after a lot of pressure from us, but they have now boycotted the games, including the officials. No, China see this as a coup for them to look reasonable and nice, when in actual fact, they're busy literally committing genocide.
I mean, there will be some people who believe that the Olympics is always an opportunity in which we put differences aside and come together for sport. I mean, that is one approach that you could consider with China.
No, you can't. There are sometimes countries that are beyond the pale. You know, this is redolent of the Olympics in Berlin in the 1930s. You know, the whole idea is really anathema. You know, countries doing this need to show that they are believers in human rights and the rule of law, and China does not believe in any of that. So it does seem to me peculiar. Yes, of course, you can, as nations opposed to each other, down tools or down weapons and join in the Olympics. That was always the principle. But the truth right now is that the Olympics have become very, very political.
That was Ian Duncan-Smith talking about Beijing and that saga with the tennis player Peng Shuai.
We're going to turn back to the Brit Awards, the biggest night for British music and a showcase for talent right across the country on a worldwide stage.
Our reporter Ellie Costello is at the Essex recording studio this morning looking at the awards and the best moments. Very good morning to you, Ellie. Hope you stayed up late for us watching the show. What were your highlights?
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, I did my homework last night. I watched the Brits in full, and it was amazing to see all of the British and international talent on the stage last night. That didn't happen last year. There were lots of virtual performances. Obviously, we were still in the grip of the pandemic, but last night it really did feel very normal. There were no visible restrictions, no face masks in sight, and people were packed in together. I think that was one of my highlights, that it did look pretty normal. And of course, it was Adele's night. It was the performance of the night for me. I drink wine from Adele. She actually stayed seated the entire time on the piano, but she still had the audience mesmerised. It was a fantastic performance, and it was a great night to celebrate British and international talent. And this morning, I'm at the Essex recording studios in Southend. This is the place to be if you are recording music in Essex. It's the UK in a recording studio. This is the place to be if you're recording music. So let's go talk to somebody who knows a little bit more than I do about the Brit Awards last night. Let's speak to Keith Gannon. Now, he is the owner of the Essex recording studios, and he's going to talk to us about his highlights last night. It's like a labyrinth in here. I'm going to get lost. But here is Keith. Good morning to you, Keith. You are live on The Breakfast Show with Eamonn and Isabel. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to pull up a pew next to you. So you did your homework last night, didn't you? You watched the Brit Awards for us. You stayed up late. What was your performance of the night?
Absolutely. I think Dave stole the show at the end. We have to give it up to Anne-Marie with her ankle, the local Essex hometown hero. Man, she was a total pro. But Dave, at the end of the night, with his Les Paul, with flames shooting out, doing that guitar solo, didn't even know he could play.
It was absolutely amazing, wasn't he? It's just so talented. And Keith, what is great about you is you are a dual citizen, so we can hear a lovely American accent there, but you live and work here. So we had some Americans doing really well yesterday, Olivia Rodrigo, Bruno Mars, those kind of people, but then we had people like Adele there. I mean, who scooped it for you?
You know what? I have to give it to Adele. I think I love my fellow Americans. Bruno Mars, last time I saw him was at the O2. What a show, but Adele just brought it home for us, I think. Definitely.
She absolutely did. And I did want to ask you about this genderless category for Best Artist. So Adele obviously scooped Best Song, Best Album and Best Artist yesterday. She made a point, didn't she, in her speech? She said she understood why it's become genderless, but she's very proud to be a woman and a female artist. What do you make of this becoming genderless, this category?
You know what? I think it was so crowded. There was a lot of way more nominations, I guess, in an individual category, and I think music should be about the arts. It should be about the music, but I think women absolutely deserve to be recognized. So it's it's a tough one. So we'll see what happens, but me personally, I like the conventional older way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Adele agrees with you, actually. And women absolutely wiped the floor with men yesterday, didn't they?
Absolutely. And as they should. The competition was fierce.
Yeah.
Absolutely fierce. And like Little Sims, wow, I absolutely loved her speech. She brought her mother on stage. You never see that. Gave her the award first thing. That was really touching for me. I loved that. Breakthrough Artist of the Year, 100%.
Yeah, she absolutely stole the show for me when she brought her mama onto the stage. I mean, who stole the show for you last night? You are a music exec. You're the expert. Who should we have our eyes on, do you think, for the next Brits?
Definitely Little Sims, rising star, stole the show for me. We've got the largest guitar collection in the country here. So when I see Dave come up with a Les Paul shooting flames out of the headstock, that definitely took me by surprise. Well impressed, Dave. Well done.
Oh, Keith, it's been fantastic to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show with Eamonn and Isabel. And Eamonn and Isabel, we are going to be here all morning. Lots more reactions to come for you.
Oh,
Very good.
Fantastic, Ellie. Getting us really into the sort of music studio vibe. I love it.
A nice setup Keith has got there. Very, very
I
atmospheric.
think Little
very, very
Sims
nice.
will be there before we know it with that little pitch from Keith.
We'll be there recording.
Yeah,
We'll
you've
be
got
doing
the
the
voice. I've got the
looks.
moves. Oh. I don't know.
Have you got the moves?
I can dance, but I can't sing. And you can sing, but I'm not sure you can dance. I don't know, but I'm guessing.
You could dance.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, good point. I like to dance, let's say it like that.
Very good. 5 to 7 even is the time, 6:55. We'll be back right after the break with all the news. Top of the hour, don't go away.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern and here's your latest forecast. It's going to stay cloudy and mild in the south today with brighter weather but colder conditions elsewhere and further blustery showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The weather front that stuck around yesterday across northern England, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland is now finally sinking south. That means there's a zone of cloudy and occasionally damp weather affecting Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia first thing before eventually that pushes into southern counties of England. For a time, some sunshine ahead of that, but it does cloud over in the far southeast. Meanwhile, brighter skies follow for much of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and for Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of keen winds and heavy showers in places. Those showers falling as sleet and snow over hills, but perhaps even to lower levels at times for the north and northwest of Scotland, where it will feel cold. Highs of 3 to 5 Celsius, but when you add on that wind, you can take off a few degrees for the feels-like temperature. Whilst it's mild in the far south, 12 or 13 Celsius, but increasingly damp actually as we go into the evening. Outbreaks of rain on and off, particularly for southwest England and the far south. Meanwhile, clearer spells follow for much of Wales, the Midlands, and for the rest of the north of the UK. Clear spells overnight mean that there'll be a few icy patches first thing Thursday. So watch out for those slippery surfaces where we've seen showers come and go through the night, and some significant snow building up over the Highlands by this stage. Also, a very windy start to the day for the north of Scotland. Gales or even severe gales for a time before an area of low pressure moves away. Once that's out of the way, actually many places seeing some good spells of sunshine. Further showers in the west and northwest, but it is going to be increasingly settled for Friday. Plenty of sunshine around, just a few showers still in the north and west, and feeling colder for all of us with temperatures at around 6 to 8 Celsius.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
NHS waiting lists in England will not start to fall for at least 2 years and may double during that time, according to the Health Secretary.
A very good morning to you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. It's Wednesday, February the 9th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Your top stories this morning. Sajid Javid pledges to cut waiting times to fewer than 12 months by 2025. But does the government's plan go far enough? Let us know your thoughts this morning.
GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News. A petition has gained 53,000 signatures calling on the West Ham footballer Kurt Zouma to face justice after he was caught on camera kicking and slapping his pet cat. In a statement, he said he was deeply sorry over the incident. Police have now said they are investigating. Our sports reporter Paul Coit will have the details on that, including what the Sports Secretary has had to say about all of this.
And the Queen of the Brits, Adele, is crowned Artist of the Year following the Brit Awards decision to remove gendered categories. We'll explain how Adele waded into the culture war, and at 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by Talia Storm.
That says Sting there. Right, the Health Secretary is warning NHS waiting lists in England won't start to fall for at least 2 years. They may double during that time as well.
Yes, Sajid Javid has warned that the backlog may get worse despite COVID pressure receding. Well, our GB News political correspondent Tom Harwood is live for us this morning at College Green. Very good morning to you. A little bit of pressure on the Prime Minister then to try and sort out this problem of waiting lists.
Certainly big pressure on the Prime Minister, and a seismic statement from the Health Secretary yesterday with measures that he says will start to turn the corner, but things may get worse before they get better. Well, let's turn now to Pat McFadden, who is, of course, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Labour MP. First of all, your immediate reaction to what Sajid Javid announced yesterday?
I think this is really worrying for people. You've got a situation now where some people are waiting more than 2 years for elective surgery like hip and knee replacements. And although the pandemic has added to the pressures in the NHS, undoubtedly, this is not a crisis created entirely by the pandemic. The truth is the NHS had been in effect disarmed in the run-up to the pandemic. Waiting lists and waiting times had been rising. There were 4.5 million people on the waiting list before the pandemic. We had 100,000 vacancies, we had thousands fewer beds than we had before, and the public is now paying the price for the failure to properly resource the NHS in the decade in the run-up to the pandemic.
In the decade in the run-up to the pandemic, NHS funding did rise pretty substantially, about £50 billion extra in real terms, a 40% increase and about a 30% increase per person. If there's so much more money going into the NHS, why aren't things getting better?
because you've got to increase NHS funding in real terms to really make a difference. And all those figures are the inputs, but look at the outputs. NHS waiting times were rising. When we left office in 2010, we had a target of 18 weeks between diagnosis and treatment that was met the vast majority of the time. And satisfaction levels with the NHS were the highest on record. Those targets were attacked. They've been routinely missed since then. We're now talking about 3 years. 3 years, the Health Secretary said yesterday, before we'll even get the diagnostic rate back to what it was before the pandemic. So the truth is the NHS was effectively disarmed over those years. It went into the pandemic not equipped enough to deal with the pressures that it was facing. And now the public are paying the price with these long waiting times. And just imagine someone in pain waiting for a knee or a hip replacement and being told that they might not get that surgery for a year or even 2 years. This isn't good enough, and at the heart of it is workforce. There are still 100,000 vacancies. What's the government going to do to fill those vacancies to make sure that the NHS has the staff it needs to deal with this backlog?
Now, of course, across the pandemic, it was estimated that around 10 million people missed appointments. We don't know how many of those will be added to the wait list, but it could be a substantial proportion. What would Labour do differently, were it to get into power tomorrow, to sort it out in a faster or a more complete way than was announced yesterday?
I think the heart of it is workforce. There's 100,000 vacancies. You simply can't get these waiting lists and waiting times down unless you fill those vacancies. So that would be the top of our agenda, is to fill those vacancies and try to make sure the NHS was adequately staffed, because without the staff it's very hard to turn this around.
Of course, workforce takes time to train, to get into the system. Would you admit that under Labour things would get worse before it got better as well?
No, I wouldn't say that, but things do take time to turn around. When we took office in '97, I remember back then you'd had a long period of Conservative government. Same thing, long waiting times, long waiting lists. At that time, I remember the Health Secretary, Frank Dobson, talking about turning around a supertanker. And we did turn the supertanker around, and we had to put a huge effort into it. It worked, and it's quite sad that here we are a generation on from that, looking like we're facing the same task all over again.
Now, just finally, Keir Starmer, your leader, had a bit of a torrid time on Monday outside Parliament, being harassed by anti-vaxxers who shouted a number of horrible things at him. Is it your expectation that he'll bring this experience up in Prime Minister's questions later today?
I really don't know, but the truth is it was a distasteful, unpleasant incident. It's happened now. We're focused on other things, such as those NHS waiting lists we've been discussing this morning. Today we're raising other issues like the level of fraud and crime and bringing forward proposals to address that. So we'll get on with the job, and we're not going to be sidetracked into talking about some of the issues that the Prime Minister's raised in recent weeks.
Well, Pat McFadden, thank you very much for joining us here on GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. Thank you. Back to you, Eamonn and Isabel.
Tom, thank you very much indeed. Latest news, this is what we've got for you. Police have started cracking down on truckers protesting vaccine mandates in the Canadian capital, Ottawa.
Vehicles there have been immobilised and thousands of litres of fuel seized as the protest approaches the end of its second week. Carl Kemper is the brother of the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He told GB News the movement is peaceful.
They try and slander the entire movement. But the reality on the streets, I've been talking to these truckers, I've been talking to people, they're cleaning up the streets, crime is down, they're sharing, there's community, there's dancing, there's high vibration, there's music, and they just want our freedom back. They want the true north, strong and free is what Canada is known as.
Documents reveal the Foreign Office has been a target of what they're calling a serious cybersecurity incident. It's not clear who was responsible or the effects of the attack, but the security firm BAE Systems carried out work in January at a cost of £470,000.
An online petition calling for West Ham defender Kurt Zouma is to be investigated over alleged animal cruelty. It's now received over 53,000 signatures. Zouma was forced to apologise yesterday after a video surfaced online of him kicking and slapping a cat.
Average rents across the country are now nearly £750 a year higher than they were at the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Analysis by property website Zoopla shows the demand for rental properties combined with a lack of supply is driving those prices up.
More than 1 in 6 speeding fines in England and Wales were cancelled in the 12 months to March last year. The RAC says 400,000 cases were dismissed due to reasons including faulty speed cameras and a lack of resources to bring cases to court.
An image of willow trees reflected in a frozen Italian lake has won the Wildlife Photographer of the Year People's Choice Award.
And a shot there of 2 male lions in the rain proved a favourite among public voters as well, as did this portrait. And if you're listening on the radio, it's an absolutely stunning picture of a kangaroo emerging from the aftermath of those Australian wildfires. And look, little Joey in the pouch there as well. Absolutely stunning pictures.
Ten past 7 is the time on this Wednesday morning. Last month saw the biggest call for humanitarian aid for a single country since the United Nations was founded, all in an attempt to ease the food and healthcare crisis in Afghanistan.
Yes, since the Taliban seized power in 2021, the country's been plunged into turmoil both politically and socially, leading to an estimated 40% of crops and agriculture failing.
To explain more about this and why Britain could do more, Darius Nassimi. Darius is the first British Afghan Conservative candidate in the UK. Good morning to you, Darius. How bad is the situation? What's your reading of it?
Well, I think Afghanistan is currently facing one of the biggest and worst humanitarian disasters in the world. And almost half of the population are suffering from hunger and starvation. And I think Afghanistan urgently needs humanitarian aid. I mean, since the Taliban took control, 9 million children are suffering from famine now. And people are selling their kidneys just to survive. People are selling their babies because of extreme poverty and starvation. I mean, the banking system collapsed, so access to cash is no longer available. And at the same time, people don't have any confidence in what's happening in the future. And this is all because of the sanctions that have been put in place by the international community because the Taliban is running the country.
Yeah, but because the Taliban are running the country, there's this reticence from the international community to fund because they don't know where the funds will end up. They give them to the Taliban, they then have to trust the Taliban to distribute them where they need to go.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why the aid has been suspended and the assets have been frozen, and I think that's a really important point that you've made, which is, do we give money to a country where the government is run by the Taliban or not? And this is the biggest problem that the people are facing.
Do we?
And that's the issue, because on the one hand, millions of people are suffering because the world doesn't want to give money to a country where the Taliban is in control. But at the same time, if we don't give the money, then also millions of people will be suffering. So I think looking at the future, there needs to be an election where in the mid to long term, so we can determine what the legitimate form of government will be. I mean, the people haven't been consulted. The people didn't democratically choose the Taliban. I also think that the Taliban don't have the capacity or the skills to run the country in the long term. You know, members of the Afghan diaspora living outside the country need to be given the chance to go back and to shape the rebuilding of the country.
But I mean, this is all hypothetical. This is Clyde Cuckoo. I mean, the Taliban's not going to roll over and say, yeah, we'll relinquish power to a wider diaspora.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think they must be held accountable for what's going to happen in the future. Because if we're going to support them financially, then they have to understand that they can't continue what they've been doing in the past.
That's why they've got to be held accountable. But how do you hold them accountable?
How we hold them accountable is through the institutions like the United Nations and the World Bank, for example. You know, women's rights has to improve. The situation of ethnic minorities has to improve. I mean, just yesterday, a shopkeeper, innocent shopkeeper in the north of Kabul was gunned down by the Taliban. Journalists are still being imprisoned. Ex-Afghan officials are still in prison. Children as young as 12 years old are still in prison. And that's why I think, you know, forced marriages are still happening. So but then the tricky question is, the Taliban shouldn't feel like they can do whatever they want to do just because the international community feel pressured to support the people of Afghanistan.
No, of course. And look, Darius, you obviously were born in Afghanistan and you fled the country because of troubles. Well, I don't know how old you are. Go on, give us a clue.
23.
Right, 23 years ago. So there have been historic problems in this country, but you have now been shaped by the UK, where you've grown up. You believe in democracy. You think it can work. We've seen time and again that it doesn't work in Afghanistan. I mean, we tried, didn't we? The Western Alliance tried to instill democracy in a country where that's just not something that comes naturally. Is it ever going to be able to be sorted out? I wonder if you are able to see things the way many people in Afghanistan would see things.
Well, I think the UK has been instrumental in supporting Afghanistan since 2001. We had so many achievements as a result of the sacrifices of British troops, the support of the UK government in promoting civil society, improving women's participation in politics, improving the education of girls, and also the reconstruction of the country as a whole. I mean, you can't compare Afghanistan today with before 2001. We had so much progress. But then when NATO withdrew from Afghanistan in August, September last year, that's when the situation completely changed. So I don't think it's impossible for democracy for Afghanistan to become a democratic society. But now...
But I mean, it was possible because you had Western troops around the edges patrolling. As soon as there was any hint that troops would leave the country, it fell very, very quickly. Everyone was surprised at how rapidly the Taliban took control again.
Well, I don't think democracy is something that can happen overnight. It's a long process. I mean, the reason why the UK is so democratic and developed is because the process has taken hundreds and hundreds of years. 20 years is not enough for Afghanistan to become perfect. But then looking at the future, I think there needs to be a change in the political system as well. As I touched upon earlier, the people haven't been consulted as to what they want. The situation of ethnic groups is still very, very fragmented. And that's why, personally, I believe that, you know, an example of having free trade zones could be a good example for Afghanistan, which can attract, you know, British investment, British companies in different parts of the country. Politically speaking, maybe devolution of power to specific zones can also be a good idea, because centralised power in Afghanistan, as we've seen in the past, didn't work.
But in short, Darius, you would be in favour, because of the humanitarian crisis, to send what aid is needed to an unreformed Taliban?
I'm in favour of humanitarian aid being sent to Afghanistan through institutions like the World Bank and the United Nations, and under the supervision of the UK government.
OK. Darius, Nassimi, really interesting to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much for coming in.
Appreciate it. Later on, very, very shortly, actually, Paul Coyte will be here with your sports roundup. And as we head into the weather, there's all sorts of warnings. Snow is coming into the UK tonight, tomorrow, and maybe...
I heard a snowy Valentine's.
You had a snowy
I've heard it's going to be a snowy Valentine's, yeah? Let's check the details, doesn't it? Snuggling in the snow. Let's get your forecast.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern, and here's your latest forecast. It's going to stay cloudy and mild in the south today, with brighter weather but colder conditions elsewhere, and further blustery showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The weather front that stuck around yesterday across northern England, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland, is now finally sinking south. That means there's a zone of cloudy and occasionally damp weather affecting Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia first thing, before eventually that pushes into southern counties of England. For a time, some sunshine ahead of that, but it does cloud over in the far southeast. Meanwhile, brighter skies follow for much of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and for Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of keen winds and heavy showers in places. Those showers falling as sleet and snow over hills, but perhaps even to lower levels at times for the north and northwest of Scotland, where it will feel cold, highs of 3 to 5 Celsius. But when you add on that wind, you can take off a few degrees for the feels-like temperature, whilst it's mild in the far south, 12 or 13 Celsius, but increasingly damp actually as we go into the evening. Outbreaks of rain on and off, particularly for southwest England and the far south. Meanwhile, clearer spells follow for much of Wales, the Midlands, and for the rest of the north of the UK. Clear spells overnight mean that there'll be a few icy patches first thing Thursday. So watch out for those slippery surfaces where we've seen showers come and go through the night, and some Significant snow building up over the Highlands by this stage. Also, a very windy start to the day for the north of Scotland. Gales or even severe gales for a time before an area of low pressure moves away. Once that's out of the way, actually many places seeing some good spells of sunshine. Further showers in the west and northwest, but it is going to be increasingly settled for Friday. Plenty of sunshine around, just a few showers still in the north and west, and feeling colder for all of us with temperatures at around 6 to 8 Celsius.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Been accused of being in a mischievous mood today.
Yes.
I think that's unfair.
Well, I think you should take it. I think it makes you much more interesting than you normally are.
Oh, Eamonn, you are unreal. Let's move on to the sport quickly before I say something I'll regret. Paul Coit joins us in the studio. He's going to take us through the big sports stories of the day.
I think you're more mysterious than mischievous, by the way. I mean that as a compliment. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's what I reckon.
Charm,
there you are. I'll try my best.
So anyway, the headline. Look, back of the here's the question.
Right.
Back of the Daily Mail today, the back pages. How could they pick him? They're talking about Kurt Zuma here, playing for West Ham last night against Watford. This is in relation, and let's just see it here, the abuse of this cat. I mean, we don't have that video. There you go. Goodness me. Well, anyway, we know the story that he kicks the cat across the kitchen floor, whatever it is. And yet, football being football, there never seems to be any boundaries. There never seems to be any morality. This guy's playing, he got booed from both sides.
Yeah, he did get booed from both sides. So there's no morality. I think there is. I think there is. But the thing is, it's just now how they deal with this. And I think it was a huge mistake that West Ham decided to pick him yesterday. And I still don't really understand why. Because David Moyes has said, wants to win the game of football. Firstly, is it going to make, away from what's happened, is it going to make a huge amount of difference that Kurt Zuma plays? I don't really think so. Is it in the best interest of everybody that he doesn't play? Yes, and in his own as well. Nobody wants to see him actually then going out and playing straight after that. He should be banned from playing in a game like that after what we've seen. But they picked him and he's gone.
As I said, no morality. I think you just backed me up there.
OK, fair enough.
As for the match itself?
As for the match itself, it's pretty much paled into insignificance apart from that. West Ham managed to beat Watford. But really, as far as the game is, it's just all about Zuma. He'll end up with a ban. He won't play in the next game. I'm sure someone will actually go and read the room, because that's what West Ham haven't done. They just haven't read the room. You know, whether you feel bad... Firstly, you should feel bad about what you've seen and what you've seen this man do and think he shouldn't be. And even if they don't feel that way, read the room and see what everybody's saying.
Is it not illegal? I mean, we've actually got the video now. We can show you. And just a warning, it is essentially someone abusing an animal. So you might be offended by this. We just want to show you to give the context of this story. Let's take a look.
No. Not on, really, is it?
It's not on. Well, absolutely, not even a question. It's horrible. And there's laughing in there, and it's on Snapchat. And also, what kind of an idiot is actually going to film it? Yeah. And surely there's something that's going to kick in and go, actually, can you not put that anyway because I've done something that's really bad? Surely someone realises how bad this is.
Are there not legal investigations into it?
I think when it comes to this, this is not my field of expertise, but I think you can go to the RSPCA and there you can lodge a complaint and then there could be prosecution. Where it goes, I don't know. It's horrible.
Tracy Crouch
she said something about
she said the RSPCA should be investigating and she wishes they would bring charges, with a view to bring charges. Frank Lampard's bubble has burst at Everton.
Well, has it burst? I suppose it probably has, actually. They're playing against Newcastle. Newcastle are on the up. We were talking about Newcastle yesterday. They're going to be OK. I'm pretty sure they're going to be all right and get away from relegation. They're playing better football. As far as Frank Lampard's concerned, it really wasn't the greatest performance against Newcastle, but not so good for them. I still think Frank Lampard will be OK. I think things will be all right at Everton, but it is a bit of a worry because they are getting sucked deeper and deeper into the relegation.
Burnley are down there as well.
Yes, they are.
They got a point at Old Trafford again, another rather dull, uninspiring performance from United.
It was United. It was at Burnley. They first half was OK. Second half, again, really poor from Manchester United. So what exactly is going on there? I have no idea, but it really isn't looking good for them. And Cristiano Ronaldo brought on with 22 minutes to go, couldn't save them. Dull night, Tuesday night in Burnley, probably doesn't suit Cristiano, but it didn't work very well for them. So
OK, now, if you're not a football fan like me, don't worry, it's done. We're moving on. Winter Olympics, here we go. We're 6 gold medals now. Oh, 6 medals, sorry, not necessarily golds for GB.
We got none, but we do have a chance. No, these are chances. These are chances. Now, Charlotte Banks. Now, this is snowboard cross. Now, this is a really exciting event. This is going on at the moment. This is like the BMX, but on snowboards. They go around a track and they race against each other. She's the best in the world. She grew up in France. She's British. She's born here, and then she went to France when she was 4, competed for France, and then she saw the light and decided that she'd compete for us.
We welcome her with open arms.
Of course we do, because she's our biggest gold medal chance. And she goes, I mean, we're looking very close. I think we're just in a few minutes' time. She'll be in the final of that. So she is our best hope for a gold medal. And I just hope it's not going to be one of those situations where something weird happens. There's a rogue piece of ice, hits the snowboard, she comes off. But she really is a terrific athlete. And we're very, very hopeful that she's going to win a gold medal.
Anthony Joshua's going to be back in the ring?
Yeah, he is. It looked like he wasn't going to be back in the ring because he's got the rematch against Alexander Usyk, who beat him and won his world titles. That was back in September at the Tottenham Stadium. So it looked like Usyk was then going to fight Tyson Fury. Money was offered to Anthony Joshua for a step aside. So basically, it's not a bad deal. I mean, you get offered about 5 or 10 million quid not to fight, which I would take all day. But he decided that he wasn't going to, and he's now going to fight Usyk. And it's probably the winner of that will then face Tyson Fury after he fights Dillian Whyte.
I know you say you would take that purse all day.
Not to fight.
Could you take a punch to the head? That is.
It all depends who from you or from than from Isabel. That's all I'm going to say.
Good, Paul. Thanks very much.
OK, I'll do it for $1 million quid. I'm in.
OK. Coming up, we're going to take the break there. We're going to be back with a newspaper review. And Ellie Costello was out and about because we're talking about the Brits last night. Who won what? We're celebrating that. Please stay with us. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Front pages of the papers on this Wednesday morning, with the time coming up to, well, it's exactly 7:30.
Yeah, the Daily Telegraph is leading with the NHS waiting lists are going to rise no matter what level of investment or reform the government is able to provide.
British Petroleum, the fuel firm, BP's finances here in the Mirror. We have more cash than we know what to do with. That's despite families having to pay for their bills in the fuel crisis. So BP, £10 billion profit.
Here's the Times. It claims Boris Johnson's been warned by MPs that his plan to clear the NHS backlog is not ambitious enough. And as you can see, also featuring a picture of Adele, who swept the board last night at the Brit Awards.
Conservative MPs have been accused of making the debate on net zero and climate change a cultural issue, according to The Guardian. And the Daily Mail asks what the £12 billion cash injection into the NHS has done if the backlog will continue for years to come. So another thing we're going to be talking about, Adele's engagement ring.
Or is it an engagement ring?
Well,
Who knows?
Pretty big.
It was large.
It poked my eye out looking at that. Yeah. Going through the newspapers now, we've got broadcaster Mike Parry, and we have got Kate Hoey, Baroness Kate Hoey as well. And Mike, you want to begin inside the Mail. This is page 6.
Yes.
And the Duchess of Cornwall.
Yeah, I think this is a great story. It's basically that the Duchess of Cornwall has soared up the popularity ratings, OK? Obviously, the Queen last weekend bestowed the ultimate honour that she would become Queen Consort when Charles accedes to the throne. And once again, it looks like Her Majesty has got public opinion absolutely right, OK? So the Queen, after 30 years, decided now's the time to announce this. Daily Mail go out and do a survey yesterday, which finds overwhelming support. The Queen's support has gone up plus 75. She's plus 75, that's 11 up. Prince William is 7 up. Catherine is 13 up. But the big one, the big climber, is Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, plus 21, up 16. She's never been this popular as she is now. And that bodes very, very well, both for Prince Charles, for the monarchy, and I would say for our country in times of utter turmoil. This looks like, you know, it's a great stability factor that the royals are still there. And I'm delighted for her. I like Camilla from the moment I read that when she was with Prince Charles, she kept her home in Gloucester, even though she could go off to Highgrove, the Moscow, because she liked to sneak away for a quick fag in the back garden and a large gin and tonic with the gardener. And I thought, she's a woman of my own heart, you know?
Yeah, he's bagged a good one there. It's interesting, isn't it, Kate Hoey? The Queen really... It's kind of recognising that all these years, Camilla just hasn't put her foot wrong. And, you know, that's what she's rewarding. We've seen the behaviour of Prince Harry and the behaviour of Prince Andrew, and compare that with Camilla, and the winner takes it all.
Well, it's that sort of really top point within the royal family of dedication and being very careful what you do and say in public, and that's where Her Majesty's been wonderful, but also Camilla has just played it absolutely right over
it's
all
the
those
don't
years.
explain, don't complain virtue, isn't it? That the Queen herself has practised all her life.
I have to say, I'm very pleased to see the opinion ratings of Harry and Meghan gone right down.
Yeah, they have.
They were not my favourite royals. I've always liked Camilla. She's very into the countryside and horses and things that, you know, I just think is rather nice about having a future queen who really understands the countryside.
And likes a gin and a fag.
And a fag.
Right. Yesterday, this was a front-page story. It's on the back page because the footballer in question, Kurt Zuma, was selected for West Ham United to play last night. And the video has emerged then of him kicking this cat.
Yes, and I think how could they pick him? A lead story in the Daily Mail, and it's in all the other back pages, where football has got involved with a very, very, I think it was very sad story. I can't even watch it, to be honest, because, you know, I think the public will just not understand how, given that was put out by his brother, who obviously had no idea, you know, that this might upset people, which makes me worried about what other things they might have been doing with animals. And it really, really shows to me the kind of way the Premier League has no real understanding of what how now football is being seen. You know, it's the footballers now, unlike when I was really, really involved with football with young apprentices, they're just so precious. They just think that they can do anything. And this young man should not have been playing last night. And it was good to see the West Ham supporters booing him as well. It wasn't just a Watford thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike agrees.
No, he shouldn't have played. I know David Moyes very well. David Moyes was manager of my club for 11 years, and I got to know David very well. I was surprised at David's attitude last night. I only care about the fact that he's one of my best players. I want him in the team. He should have been overruled by the board. Baroness Brady should have stepped in. She's a woman that we know has compassion. We know that she understands her audience, the football fan, but the greater game of football and its image. And this is a terrible image. As Kate just rightly said, these guys look as though it was a Sunday afternoon at home, pick up the cat, boot it over the other side of the kitchen. They're so unaware of their dreadful behaviour. They put it on audio. They put it on a Snapchat or something.
Social media site.
So somebody could see it. I'd like to also know, how is the cat? If you drop kick a cat, and I'm absolutely serious about this, do you think you're not going to break a few of its little ribs or its leg or something?
I think the cat should be taken away from him.
Well, of course it should.
Of course, he needs a knock on the door today, from RSPCA inspectors, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Did you read that the reason that he started kicking his cat around was because the cat had misbehaved at home? It had apparently not used its litter tray, and he got very angry. But a cat expert I read said that's because the cat was already suffering stress inside that house. So it looks as though there may be a history of this bad behaviour and this mistreatment of a poor innocent little cat.
Well, it's a bad judgment by David Moyes.
Yeah, bad judgment by David Moyes. Mike, let's turn our attention now not just to football players, but their wives.
Yes.
The war of the wags.
Oh, yes.
Look, this has been waging for some time, but it's not getting any prettier, is it?
It's not getting any prettier, but the latest revelations have come from a High Court prelim hearing in which it is now alleged that... so there's two people here. There's Colleen Rooney and there's Rebecca Vardy, OK? Both the wives of very established people in the football world. Jamie Vardy and Wayne Rooney, of course. But it's revealed now in this pre-court hearing that Caroline Watt, who is described as the sidekick of Ms. Vardy, thank you very much, said that, did I actually suggest that we should start leaking a few of these texts, and would that put us in a better position? So it's coming out now, allegedly, that Rebecca Vardy may have questions to answer. But the most ridiculous fact that emerged from this High Court is that a phone that a High Court judge has said must now be examined to find out what the facts are mysteriously disappeared into the North Sea. And when asked how did that happen, the answer was we were exporting the phone to acquire expert technical knowledge abroad.
What do you mean it disappeared into the North Sea? It was dropped in the water.
Eamonn, all I'm saying is the only explanation is it disappeared in the North Sea. So I've got this image now of Rebecca Vardy leaning on the rail of a North
Super yacht.
Sea, of a North Sea, or a North Sea ferry or something like that, and I suddenly dropped my phone with all the information in it. Oh, well, we'll get a scuba driver.
So they were able to track the phone until it disappeared in the North Sea.
That's right.
Wow.
Absolutely,
Gosh,
yeah.
Well, I'm more interested in a real celebrity, and that's Kenneth Branagh. And of course, the Oscars were announced yesterday. And he has got the nods for the Best Picture, Belfast, and the Best Original Screenplay. And it's a very nice little piece about the whole 94th Academy Awards and how it will be basically, Ken versus Ben in terms of who's going to win. And there's a very nice...
Who's Ben?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right, yeah, he's in a Western.
Benedict,
yes, he's those are the two key.
Yeah.
But it's very nice about, there's a little bit here it says, which you'll identify with. 3 decades ago, Branagh may have arrived in Hollywood in a blaze of acclaim, but he was no by means born to it, and Belfast surely reminded his peers of his humble beginnings. And it's a very lovely film, which I have to say I enjoyed much more than I thought I would. I'd kind of read all about it and thought, because I kind of lived through bits of it, and I thought it was really worth seeing, and beautifully filmed black and white images, which I think take anyone who knows about Northern Ireland back to that, and also will help our tourist industry, I hope.
The young lad who plays the 10-year-old Kenneth Branagh, Jude Hill, absolute star.
Yes.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
So I hope he gets something.
Have you seen his Eamonn? Have you seen the Belfast?
Yes,
stuff?
yes, yes.
Oh, yes,
What do you think about it as your hometown?
I like Kate, I think Branagh, for a genius, is the most down-to-earth, approachable, lovely man.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time talking to him on that particular night. And
he hasn't forgotten his roots.
No, and his Belfast was my Belfast. We're the same age. I went to school one side of that road. He went to school the other side of that road. So it was fascinating. My only thing was, and it was a small thing, I didn't like the set. It was like a set of EastEnders or whatever. It wasn't. It wasn't real. It wasn't a reconstruction. It wasn't a real street in Belfast.
No, was any of it filmed actually in Belfast?
I think a lot of it was filmed in Pinewood, because of COVID.
Oh yeah,
they had to do a lot of scenes in England, but there was enough shots of Belfast.
Yeah, but I mean,
there was actually the Grove Park. They filmed a lot in the Grove.
Did they go into Grove Park?
Yeah.
But I mean, to have a film. Sorry, this is the Northern Ireland thing, but to have a film actually called Belfast that might win the Oscars or win
incredible
is amazing.
Would be fantastic. I spent a year there at the height of the hunger strikes. I was there on the night at the first, Bobby Sands and all that. I was in the Europa Hotel, which you'll know very well indeed, right? The most bombed hotel in the world.
There was a bomb scare at the Europa 2 weeks ago.
Was there?
It hasn't gone away.
Good God, I didn't know that. And what you heard at night, you knew that another hunger strike had gone, was the banging of bin lids on the pavements. That was the way they communicated inside and outside of the prison.
Soldiers were in certain streets,
that's
raids were happening.
That's right. Kenneth Branagh, by the way, the man you admire so much for obvious reasons, is the most nominated in categories performer of all time. He's been nominated in 7 different categories for Oscar awards, ranging from actor to playwright and director.
I do think he is a genius, and his story is quite interesting because a lot of people at that time, 1970 and beyond, had to face moving from Belfast to England, to Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, whatever it happened to be. And I remember when we were faced with that, my father, who was a carpet fitter, he said, how am I going to earn a living in Burnley or Wolverhampton? Who do I know in terms of contacts? And I mean, he could have.
Yes, he could have done very well.
We stayed. And
can't imagine you with a Wolverhampton accent.
Well, but Kenneth Branagh and his family left.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful line, there's a beautiful poignant line in the film, which says, Belfast, it just rares people for emigration. For export, is that what it says?
Yes, and it's still, that's still happening a bit, especially young people going to university in England now. But great film, everybody should see it. And it's brought in already. I think there was something about the amount of money it's brought in. It's huge already at the box office.
And speaking of geniuses, a quick word about Bamber Gascoigne. Died at the age of 87, of course, the don of a university challenge, and also in latter years set up his own opera house in West Horsley in Surrey.
Absolutely, yeah. Didn't he inherit some huge ancient building that he turned into that opera house? It's massive, but it needed like £20 million renovation or something, and only Bamber Gascoigne could have done it. But he gave us all the expressions we carried on for years, didn't we? You started for 10, fingers on the button and all that kind of stuff. And people say that to this day, don't they?
They do.
It was never the same, really, with Jeremy Paxson, much as I, admire Jeremy and all that. But when somebody initiates a thing like that in 1962, it's very hard then to change the mould, isn't it?
Yeah, the original. Oh, well, God rest his soul. Right, well, Kate Hoey and Mike Parry, thank you so much for taking us through the papers this morning. We'll see you again in an hour.
Lovely, thank you.
A story we are just bringing you up to date now in the northeast of England and Teesside. This was about the mysterious deaths of tens of thousands of crustaceans, crabs and lobsters.
Yeah, well, the government have been looking into it. They say this was caused by a large algae bloom that caused the deaths. But those in the fishing industry have actually rejected this conclusion. And our North East of England reporter, Rachel Sweeney, has been speaking to them about it.
Fishermen have dismissed the government's concluded investigation into the deaths of tens of thousands of crabs and lobsters. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs says toxin-producing algal blooms are to blame. But the North East Fishing Collective says that's utter rubbish, and they've paid for an independent investigation.
We got the CFAS chemical analyses, and I went through that, and CFAS had done a fairly good job on analysing crab samples, a little bit of water and a little bit of sediment sample for a whole range of chemicals. The majority of those chemicals were present at levels of less than 1 milligram to the litre. Some chemicals were present at 10 or less milligrams to the litre, and one chemical called pyridine was there in the impacted crabs in the impact area at levels of up to 430 milligrams to the litre.
And this is something the National Federation of Fishermen's Associations wants looking into.
I think the independent report that's been produced makes some interesting comparisons. Particularly, I thought the comparison with Cornwall, with crab from Cornwall, which shows much lower levels of pyridine, well, that needs explaining.
DEFRA ruled out dredging, sewage, chemical pollution and undersea cabling. A spokesperson said, "Our sampling established that no pyridine was present in the water or sediment samples we collected, but was detected in crab tissue from both impacted areas and non-impacted areas elsewhere in the country." As such, any levels detected in crab tissue are likely to be linked to biological processes and not necessarily from the environment. Mr. Dear Jones believes the deaths began at Teesside Freeport, the site hailed as of key importance in the government's levelling up agenda.
It is now being geared up to take bigger ships, so they're having to dredge the channels deeper than they have ever been dredged before to get the bigger ships in, and they may well be also dredging dockside sites in order to make berths for ships bigger than they've ever had in before. They don't know when this is going to damn well stop, these fishermen, so that's the root of their frustration. They're sitting there, they're paying for the maintenance of the boat, they've paid their licences to fish for the year, and they can't fish and they can't sell anything. And it's all dying in front of them.
The fishing community is now calling for a halt to dredging operations. DEFRA's investigation is concluded, but the independent investigation continues. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
Well, I hope they really do get that sorted out, because that is very, very worrying. Let's go back to the Brits last night. This is the big showbiz news you're waking up to this morning. Ellie Phillips for us here as to what happened. Adele, talk of the town with all of this, 3 awards and performances which you really liked.
Yeah, you know what? Adele is fantastic. Like, she is just a supreme being, in my opinion, when it comes to her stage presence, her vocals. And yes, last night she performed one of her tracks from her album, and it's called I Drink Wine. And we think we have a clip of it to watch, yeah.
OK, here we go.
Oh no, this is her gorgeous look on the red carpet. This is Adele slaying it on the red carpet. It's a velvet gown with polka dot tulle detail there. It's a couture gown.
And don't miss the most important accessory, which is an absolutely gigantic rock, which everyone's speculating is an engagement ring, despite all these rumours of problems in her private life.
Yeah, and also speaking about that as well, because people are saying that she's, this could be her engagement announcement with her boyfriend, Rich Paul, who is a basketball agent over in America. She actually touched on her ex-husband last night. So she accepted the award for Album of the Year and she dedicated it to her son and to her ex-husband.
Which is only fair, given that she wrote at length about all his failings and entitled it. It was sort of a divorce album, wasn't it?
She said, this is our album. This is definitely as much your album as it is. And she got really emotional when she did it as well. So that was really nice.
Are we going to hear her sing?
Yeah, let's have a listen.
I don't think you could hear that at home, so really it's not really worth bothering.
You could get the idea, which was old school Hollywood glamour. It was ballad over banger. And that was the story of the night, really, that, there was all these sort of rap artists and stuff, but there she was in the old style of music, love songs, winning the day.
And she did even say, actually, she won Song of the Year as well for Easy on Me. She said, I can't believe that this, this ballad's won over all these bangers, like you said. And also, as well, Songwriter of the Year went to Ed Sheeran, of course, who's known for these incredible lyrics and his melodies and catchy songs as well. So that was a really good thing.
We're talking about style there, people's style, but also the actual physical style here. And it was eclectic, we have to say. Let's go through some of the people who caught your eye.
Oh, people that caught my eye. There were so many. This is what I love, the fashion that you come. People wear the most outrageous things. So I've got to start with Maya Jama and Ashley Roberts. They both wore the same designer, Mono, who's really known for these cut-out outfits, very skin-bearing. And I think that was one of the themes of the night. It was very much who can show as much flesh while wearing something that's very interesting and unique. So Maya Jama, Ashley Roberts, they went head-to-head with that. And also Talia Storm as well. She wore a really, really big outfit, but hers was Mugler, like you said before, which is an incredible designer, very expensive.
Well, he just died, didn't he? So there's been all the tributes from the likes of Kim Kardashian, and that's the kind of realm of people that have been wearing him. Interesting to see it. Although it does make me laugh when people wear these very, very expensive. Hopefully, we've got a picture of Talia Storm somewhere we can show people at home wearing these hugely expensive garments, which consist of two pieces of string.
Do we have pictures of anyone?
But I think.
If you run the pictures, we'll talk about them.
See, Talia was not messing around, was she? Talia did not come to play. She was like, here I am, let me show you what I've got. But it's actually kind of like leggings. People are like, how is that on her? It's actually leggings and the kind of crop top thing. But I think she's coming along later. She might correct me
Very
with
brave. I would not be wearing that on a red carpet.
Very cold.
Do you know what I think? Yes. Imagine if you wore that and you rocked up to the Wetherspoons. I think you might get some funny looks in the local pub, you know what I mean? But fair play to her. I mean, come on, you go, girl.
Well, Talia's coming in, isn't she? She's on about 9:15, hot from the red carpet.
Hopefully she's coming in like that.
Here we go.
I reckon she might be a little bit.
Who else have we got on the red carpet?
So Anne-Marie was on the red carpet as well, and this gorgeous look from Philosophy. She wore a leather jacket with essentially a bikini underneath, wrapped underneath. It was a very sleek look, very sexy. There were a lot of these black outfits on the red carpet with actually really skin-bearing. We also had, which is amazing, Jodie Whittaker was on the red carpet. She was there to present an award, and she actually confirmed her second pregnancy on the red carpet in this very unusual dress from a designer called Simone. It's very oversized.
There you go.
White. It's got this, splash of red at the top. It's not something I would choose, but you know what? It's high fashion.
Oh, we've got Line of Duty Vicky McClure there.
And Vicky McClure is there. Vicky McClure is a designer called Azzy Oster in this gorgeous corseted top and sleek
Do you
black
think
trousers.
it's gorgeous, Ellie, honestly?
I like the high fashion element of it, and I like that she went a bit daring, because we're used to seeing her in quite hard back looks, and at least this had a little bit of something interesting going on. I think if it was just a plain black trousers and a fitted course, it would have been like, okay. But now we're talking about it, I mean, she's playing with those shapes, which is really good fun. We've also got, oh gosh, this was one of my favourites, Olivia Rodrigo. You can see her there. She's in a silver sequin dress from Alexandre Valouthier. It's stunning. It's gorgeous when she got to accept the award for Best International Song.
Oh, and on the subject of songs, we're going to go to our reporter Ellie Costello now, who's at the Essex Recording Studio for reaction there.
Hi, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, I've just been practicing my singing. I'm feeling quite inspired by the Brit Awards last night. I watched the entire thing in whole for you. I made sure I stayed up late to be across all of the action. So many highlights, as you just heard from other Ellie there. Adele was fantastic, scooping 3 awards: Best Artist, Best Single, Best Album. It was the night of Adele. Mo Gilligan, the comedian, he presented for the first time. Lots of people saying that was lovely, but the name Jack Whitehall was trending on Twitter yesterday. He was the previous host. Lots of people saying they actually preferred Jack Whitehall. They found him a lot funnier. So that's just a little bit of the roundup of the Brits last night. We're going to speak to this guy now through the glass. That's Keith Gannon. He is the owner of the Essex Recording Studios, which is where we are now. And he has owned this place for 5 years. It's actually been in the media industry for over 100 years, this building. It's like a labyrinth. So I'm going to take you through now to meet Keith, and we're going to be talking about the Brit Awards, his highlights, and who he thinks we should have our eyes out on for the next Brit Awards. Good morning to you, Keith.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you so much for having us. You are live on TV and radio. Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. I'm just going to plonk myself down. Do you want to wheel over to me so we can be close?
Hey, guys.
As one. So you were watching the Brit Awards last night, weren't you? Tell me, what did you make of the awards last night?
I loved it. I thought the live performances were great. Here in Essex, Anne-Marie, man, she saved the day. What a pro with that ankle.
Yeah, so tell us what happened there for people that didn't watch it.
Oh, a slip and fall straight off the bat, but she recovered just like that. She was great.
Such a pro, right? So we have to talk about Adele. I was just saying it was the absolute highlight of the night for me. What was interesting, when she scooped that Best Album prize, Best Artist prize, sorry, that is a genderless category now. And she was saying that she understood why it has to be genderless, but she likes being a female artist and she's proud to be a woman. Do you think that was Adele wading into culture wars there?
You know what? I get what she's saying. I think if there's too many nominees, it can be a little bit confused. And also, I think we might need to keep the gender separations, because the women will just clean up. The men won't win any awards.
And that's exactly what we were seeing last night, isn't it? And Adele, it's the first time we've seen her since she cancelled those Las Vegas shows. That was all because she was saying because of COVID-19, it was delaying her show. It wasn't going to be the show that she wanted in Las Vegas. What kind of impact has the pandemic had on the music industry?
COVID turned the music industry upside down. Most of the money and revenue that artists make these days come from touring, not from recording. Now, for us being in a recording studio here, when artists couldn't tour, all you can do is write and record. So for the past 2 years, we've been locked down under here in our little bunker in South End, writing new music for really exciting artists, recording. And now what we're seeing 2 years later with the Brits is the fruits of all that labor, all of that time spent locked down, writing materials, really thinking about the impact that this has had on us. And, you know, last night was the results of that. 100%.
Absolutely. So much British and international talent last night. I know one of your highlights was Dave on the guitar at the very end.
Oh, yeah. So part of lockdown is people have been picking up guitars, record guitar sales. There's now a focus going back to guitar-based music. We haven't seen a lot with rock. Last night we saw the alternative rock categories, and a little bit bizarre. I mean, I don't typically think of Coldplay as an alternative rock group, but what we did see was Dave at the end smashing it with a Gibson Les Paul, flames shooting out of the headstock, and I don't think we would have seen that if it wasn't for lockdown. And we're really excited to see the return of guitar-based music, 100%.
Yeah, and we're really excited for everything to come as well. So tell us a little bit about who was recorded in this room, because you've had some real stars, haven't you?
Yeah, really exciting stuff. So we just had The Darkness was in here. We did some mixing on their latest album. We've got an amazing local star, hometown hero Charlotte Auberry, who went viral right before the pandemic. I mean, the month before, she went on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Lorraine had all this momentum, and then COVID-19 took all the wind out of the sails. So we've been here writing her debut album. I think you're going to hear from her pretty soon.
We are. Keith,
yes.
Thank you very much for that little intro there. Well, Keith, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Thank you for your reaction to the Brits. And as Keith was just saying there, we are going to have Charlotte with us this morning. As Keith was saying, she went mega viral just before the pandemic, singing Shallow on the subway. We're going to be speaking to her in the next hour.
I'm looking forward to that, Ellie, but I also want to hear you singing. You said you were having a little practice. I've seen your dance moves. Your Irish dancing's very good, but I wondered whether or not you're a good singer as well.
I think it's a bit early in the morning for that one, Isabel.
Good stuff, Ellie. Thank you. We'll see you in a bit.
Now's your chance. Keith could sign you.
Yeah, exactly.
She's in the right place and whatever. Have you ever had a singing career?
No, but I do love to sing.
Are you good?
I'm all right, you know.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm all right. I would rock a karaoke. Do you know what I mean?
Good for you. I'm
I mean, I wouldn't do
dreadful.
X Factor or anything, but I'd rock a karaoke.
I break glass when I sing, but I love it.
Might
So
remind me
sad.
of the actress Trisha Penrose.
Do I?
Yes, and she could sing.
Could she?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
She was in Heartbeat.
Yeah.
And whatever. Yeah. From your neck of the woods. Overall, how would you describe the whole performance last night? And you know, the Brits has changed. It's evolved very much over the years. Is that a good thing, bad thing? What do you think?
I think music evolves and music changes, and so the Brits has to reflect that, you know what I mean? And last night was really good. I know Ellie mentioned it there, the other Ellie, that there, you know, was a lot of diversity. Last night we got 4 new categories this year, which represented different genres of music, and they were on display throughout the evening as well, which I do think
we lost categories depending on which way you want to report it,
This
but that's
is
a whole
true.
nother matter.
That's a whole nother
We'll come on
thing.
to that next hour. Ellie, thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. With that, we'll hit the break back top of the hour. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Health Secretary warns that NHS waiting lists in England won't start to fall for at least 2 years and may double during that time.
Good morning, it's 1:08 on Wednesday, February the 9th. You are watching Breakfast on GB News. We could be listening with Eamonn and Isabel.
Okay. Leading the news this morning, Sajid Javid unveils the NHS recovery plans, pledging to cut waiting times to fewer than 12 months by 2025.
But does the government's plan go far enough? We want to know your thoughts this morning. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Prime Minister announces a mini reshuffle, appointing Jacob Rees-Mogg as Brexit Opportunities Minister.
Is he the right man to unleash the UK's full potential on the world stage?
Queen of the Brits, Adele, crowned Artist of the Year following the Brit Awards decision to remove gendered categories. We'll explain how Adele weighed in to the culture war.
And in the next hour, we'll be joined by Talia Storm.
Good morning to you. The Health Secretary is warning NHS waiting lists in England won't start to fall for at least 2 years, and they may double during that time.
Sajid Javid warned that the backlog may get worse despite COVID pressure receding. Let's bring in our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who joins us this morning from Westminster. Very good morning to you, Tom. Lots of papers this morning saying that the Prime Minister really needs to do something about improving those waiting lists a little bit quicker than that.
Yes, certainly a lot of pressure, not least from the Tory benches, where one Member of Parliament asked Sajid Javid yesterday to try and relieve pressure on people who wanted to go for private care, for example, reinstituting the tax break that Blair abolished for private care. I'm not sure that the government's going to follow through on that, however. It does seem to be that this is a pretty tricky problem to fix because so many people missed out on those appointments during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, when the NHS was under so much pressure from elsewhere. About 10 million appointments missed is the estimate, and getting those all seen to will take time in many ways. The waiting list and the growth in the waiting list that could be coming down the line is already baked in. So there's a limited array of options that the government can pursue. Of course, that £12 billion that is being raised every year from the national insurance tax hike that's coming in this April will be going towards this package of measures that was announced by Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, yesterday. However, the Labour Party is saying that it's not enough. I spoke to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Pat McFadden, earlier today, who told me that the government need to focus on staff.
The heart of it is workforce. There's 100,000 vacancies. You simply can't get these waiting lists and waiting times down unless you fill those vacancies. So that would be the top of our agenda, is to fill those vacancies and try to make sure the NHS was adequately staffed, because without the staff it's very hard to turn this around.
The headlines.
And
but
what
of
about
course, in terms of recruiting and training staff, that takes time, and that would not be a quick fix either. We're in for a rough couple of years, whatever comes.
Tom, thank you very much indeed. Let's get an update of what else is happening news-wise. We go to Canada. First of all, police there have started cracking down on truckers protesting against vaccine mandates in Ottawa. Vehicles have been immobilised and thousands of litres of fuel seized as the protest approaches the end of its second week. Now, the brother of the Canadian Prime Minister is Kyle Kemper, not the same name as Justin Trudeau, and certainly not the same views.
To try and slander the entire movement. But the reality on the streets, I've been talking to these truckers, I've been talking to people, they're cleaning up the streets, crime is down, they're sharing, there's community, there's dancing, there's high vibration, there's music, and they just want our freedom back. They want the true north, strong and free is what Canada is known as.
The Health Secretary's pledged to recruit 15,000 new health workers by the end of next month. It comes as Sajid Javid warned the NHS waiting list in England will not start to fall for another 2 years. Shadow Treasury Secretary Pat McFadden told GBNews, as you heard just a few moments ago, that the public is now paying for the failures of the government.
This is really worrying for people. You've got a situation now where some people are waiting more than 2 years for elective surgery.
Documents reveal the Foreign Office has been a target of what they're calling a serious cybersecurity incident. It's not clear who was responsible, though we can usually guess the effects of the attack. But the security firm BAE Systems carried out work in January at a cost of just under £470,000.
An online petition calling for the West Ham footballer Kurt Zouma to be investigated over animal cruelty has now received over 61,000 signatures.
Zouma was forced to apologise yesterday after a video surfaced online of him kicking and slapping his cat.
Average rents across the country are now nearly £750 a year higher than they were at the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Analysis by property website Zoopla shows the demand for rental properties combined with a lack of supply is driving up prices.
More than 1 in 6 speeding fines in England and Wales were cancelled in the 12 months to March last year. The RAC says 400,000 cases were dismissed due to reasons which included faulty speed cameras and a lack of resources to bring cases to court.
Right, you're great getting in touch with us, telling us the stories that are affecting you. Jane says about Kurt Zuma, the footballer, and kicking that cat. So we now know his brother filmed this disgusting cruelty under the Animal Welfare Act. Not only is the perpetrator guilty of animal cruelty, but so is the filmer for not intervening. Now, the Sports Minister yesterday called for the RSPCA to investigate this, and I do think that Zuma should be getting a knock on the door from one of their inspectors just to check on the cat.
Yeah, of course, along with the whole of the country, I'd probably suggest everybody would agree with that. The question is that happening? War says, take his cats off him, send him to prison. I hate him. I am so angry. Jeff says, today we learned a great deal about football morality. He should lose his job, as did the woman who kicked her horse. Well, David Moyes didn't think so, played him last night on the pitch, not even a playing ban. So what does that say about, well, the club and indeed David Moyes? Okay. Just quickly, before we move on, I just want to read out this one because we've been talking a lot about the Brits this morning. James has said, the Brit Awards felt underwhelming, if you ask me. They completely destroyed the categories, and some artists who deserve awards will never win because of this. Let us know your thoughts this morning. We love to hear them.
I mean, I hate to sound fuddy-duddy
Here we go.
on this, but it just kept mentioning people I'd never heard of.
Yeah. No, I mean, I honestly thought the same.
As much as anyone else.
I know. Well, it was Little Sims that was lost on me. That's when I really felt like I'm showing the signs of ageing. Her performance, that was underwhelming to me. But anyway,
congratulations to everybody who won something.
Yeah, and she brought her mum on stage, and that was a lovely moment, very touching moment.
The cost of living crisis, obsessing so many of you. It's now been revealed that energy costs for the average household will increase by almost 700 quid this year. The industry regulator Ofgem was quizzed in front of MPs.
Well, our national reporter Paul Hawkins has been taking up the story.
Oh, Bulb is the fastest growing energy company.
Oh, I heard that too.
This was one of 29 failed energy suppliers over the past year. The victims of sky-high wholesale gas prices, which they couldn't pass on because of the price cap.
People's Energy believes in affordable energy for all.
Some, however, were not financially strong enough to deal with market forces. Yesterday, the boss of the energy regulator said they should have checked that.
Financial regulation needs to be tougher. We need a retail sector that's more resilient and more able to deal with the kind of shock that we've seen. And to be clear, Chair, we accept that had we done that earlier, this would have been better for customers.
4 million customers were left without a supplier, and now we're picking up the cost of protecting them through our energy bills.
You're thinking it might be 200 million?
Something like that. Now, those figures aren't figures that we finished with. We're still going through those, but roughly of that order of magnitude. But the vast majority of the cost has been down to re-hedging people when they move from a failed supplier to another supplier. And that's about 85% of the cost that we're seeing.
The average household will have to pay almost £700 a year extra on their energy bills after Ofgem raised the price cap last week. And there could be more pain to come.
The market really is looking at some factors which are fairly binary. And your member has already mentioned the Russia-Ukraine situation. That will clearly have an impact on supply, and that will clearly have an impact on price. So I'd caution against any projections, but if we just look at the forward market, so what the traders think right now, then it does look like there's upward pressure on prices.
Meanwhile, more and more of us, many working full-time, are having to make difficult choices. 1 million adults across the UK went an entire day without eating over the past month because they were unable to put food on the table, according to the Food Foundation. The charity says it's due to rising energy bills and food prices, plus the loss of the £20 universal credit uplift. The government announced last week a loan of £200 from October via energy companies, plus a council tax rebate in England equating to £150 per household. But critics say it's nowhere near enough. Mortgage costs are also rising, and still to come is the national insurance rise in April, plus the freeze in income tax brackets, meaning millions more will start paying tax or pay the higher rate. Political choices, which the government is sticking to. For now, Paul Hawkins, GB News.
Paul, thanks very much indeed. We're going to take a break there. Back with the telemedicine segment with Dr. Amika. Last chance to send in your questions. Get in touch with us. You can tweet at GB News. Back after this.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern and here's your latest forecast. It's going to stay cloudy and mild in the south today with brighter weather but colder conditions elsewhere and further blustery showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The weather front that stuck around yesterday across northern England, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland, is now finally sinking south. That means there's a zone of cloudy and occasionally damp weather affecting Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia first thing, before eventually that pushes into southern counties of England. For a time, some sunshine ahead of that, but it does cloud over in the far southeast. Meanwhile, brighter skies follow for much of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and for Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of keen winds and heavy showers in places. Those showers falling as sleet and snow over hills, but perhaps even to lower levels at times for the north and northwest of Scotland, where it will feel cold. Highs of 3 to 5 Celsius, but when you add on that wind, you can take off a few degrees for the feels-like temperature. Whilst it's mild in the far south, 12 or 13 Celsius, but increasingly damp actually as we go into the evening. Outbreaks of rain on and off, particularly for southwest England and the far south. Meanwhile, clearer spells follow for much of Wales, the Midlands, and for the rest of the north of the UK. Clear spells overnight mean that there'll be a few icy patches first thing Thursday. So watch out for those slippery surfaces where we've seen showers come and go through the night, and some significant snow building up over the Highlands by this stage. Also, a very windy start to the day for the north of Scotland. Gales or even severe gales for a time before an area of low pressure moves away. Once that's out of the way, actually many places seeing some good spells of sunshine. Further showers in the west and northwest, but it is going to be increasingly settled for Friday. Plenty of sunshine around, just a few showers still in the north and west, and feeling colder for all of us with temperatures at around 6 to 8 Celsius.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We like to make our breakfast show a little bit different, don't we, on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel? It's all about getting your views. Your views makes the news. Throughout the morning, we've been asking you to send in your thoughts and comments on the stories that matter to you. And I'm pleased to say this morning we are joined by Charles Beckham. He's from Darlington. Charles, very good to welcome you to the programme. Just first of all, introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sorry, there's the sun shining and distracting us all. Is there? Have you got? Can you close? Oh. No, maybe not that much. Right.
Hang on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's better. That's better.
Thanks,
Welcome to the programme. We can now see you. Just tell us a little bit about you. Obviously, you're a loyal GB News viewer. What is it that you want to talk to us about this morning?
Oh, no, that's no good. Basically, whether or not Boris needs to apologise for what he said about Keir Starmer.
And what's your view?
I don't think he does. I don't think he has anything to apologise for. In 2009, Keir Starmer was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. He was a director of public prosecutions, and the police had done an interview on. They'd interviewed Jimmy Savile under caution on the 4 child sex offended cases, and the Crown Prosecution Service declined to prosecute. Now, I personally, and this is only opinion, but I don't believe that shall we say, a bottom of the ladder lawyer in an office made the decision. With Jimmy Savile being such a high profile celebrity, I don't believe that just came out of somebody at the bottom of the rung. I think a decision on somebody like that would have gone quite high up. But even so, Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions, and on many things you find that something goes wrong, so people call for the head of the leader, if you like. When things go wrong in the Met Police, you often hear people saying, "Oh, Cressida Dick needs to go," and all the rest of it, even though she didn't do anything wrong as such.
The difference is the allegations aren't made specifically at Cressida Dick. The Prime Minister specifically, and what's been described as a Trumpian allegation, claimed that Sir Keir Starmer himself was personally responsible for failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile, which simply wasn't true. I accept your argument that he was the head of the CPS at the time, but it is a very subtle difference, and that's, I'm just explaining to you and anyone who might share your view that if you're making that claim about somebody like Cressida Dick or Boris Johnson, you've got to distinguish between being the head of the organisation and making it a personal allegation.
Yes, well, if you listen to Boris Johnson's words at Prime Minister's Question Time, he said that Keir Starmer was the head of he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, he was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, and he failed to prosecute Jimmy Savile. He didn't.
Well, my point is he didn't, because he didn't prosecute the case. But I see what you're trying to say, and we'll just leave it at that.
And Charles, as I understand it, you're an ex-army man, are you? Or forces man?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. 22 years.
Yeah, and therefore I sort of see where you're coming from in terms of your education, you know, as a young soldier and up through the ranks. Your superiors, the buck stopped with them, really. They had to be responsible for what happened on their watch, hadn't they?
Well, yeah, not only in the army. I find that in many things. You know, the buck stops here. What, wasn't it one of the US presidents had that over, was it Roosevelt, had that over his desk? The buck stops here?
Yeah. Okay, so we see where you're coming from. So that's certainly one issue. Anything else that's getting on your goat?
Oh, no, I wouldn't even go there. No, things don't get on my goat. You know, I, like everybody else, have got a bit fed up with what's gone on for the last 2 years, but, you know, we've all had to suffer it. But no, not really. I'd like to thank you for your programme, by the way. I do enjoy it.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
And do you know what, Charles? You make it. People like you who get in touch and speak to us and air your concerns and the things you feel that aren't being represented correctly. We're very, very appreciative of you doing that, and we're glad to give you a voice.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Over and out. Warrant Officer Beckham.
Look, let's turn our attention now to the real definition of telemedicine. Of course, it's the future of medicine. You don't have to go and see your doctor anymore. You can do these video calls, but we're doing it here in the studio because we know how hard it is to actually get hold of a GP or a doctor these days. Dr. Emeka Okorocha is in the house with all of your health woes to be answered. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you guys too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about tinnitus or something like tinnitus.
Yeah.
This is a question from Mark. And he says, I have a ringing in my left ear. I've had it for about a week. It's not too long. What could it be? How can I get rid of it?
Okay, so yes, you're right. So a week's not very long. And what it could be, like you mentioned, it probably could be tinnitus. As an A&E doctor, what would worry me is kind of what's brought it on. Has there been any head injury? Have you lost your sense of hearing as well? This is stuff where I'd be like, go straight to A&E. However, for a week, I say if you see your GP, what they're going to do is they're going to look at your inner ear and see if they can find any causes, such as buildup of earwax or any infection in the ear, and probably take some blood tests. That could give them a better idea of what it is.
Yeah.
If it is tinnitus, in terms of getting rid of it, it's mainly conservative treatments, such as obviously avoiding stress and triggers, such as loud noises for tinnitus. Also, anxiety medication generally helps tinnitus too, but it depends on the primary cause.
So anxiety medication,
Yeah.
meaning it literally calms you down, does
Yeah,
it?
it literally calms you down. So a lot of people think of tinnitus, and the more you think about it, the worse the sound gets. So tinnitus is basically yourself hearing the sound in one ear or both ears, which isn't external. So it's coming from inside your head. This could be a ringing, a humming, or a wishing. And basically, because of that, when you look at the treatments, there are certain causes, such as even diabetes can cause tinnitus. But when you rule out the primary causes of tinnitus and what we call idiopathic tinnitus, whereas there's no actual medical cause, that's when stuff like cognitive behavioral therapy and anxiety calming down and stress, reducing stress can actually help.
See, I get tinnitus periodically. So sometimes I have it and sometimes I don't. I could be going to sleep and I'll be like, oh, I've got tinnitus because I can hear.
Common.
Right, so what's that?
So it's the same. So a lot of people can get tinnitus and it could be constant or it can come in waves. I suggest seeing the GP when it's getting worse and worse and worse, or it's impacting your life. So basically, it's making you stressed, you can't sleep, you can't get on with your day job. That's when you may need some investigation. But I say come to me in A&E when your tinnitus has been sudden after something like a head injury or you've lost your hearing as well.
Well, Isabel and I come to each other. We sit and have medical consultations.
And diagnose each other.
There's certain things we have in common. We both have twitchy.
The number of times I'll say to Eamonn, my eye's twitching.
And
but
then
it's
my
just
eye starts
tiredness.
twitching out of sympathy.
Your eyes started twitching inside the actual pupil.
My eyeballs.
And then we thought, is that blood pressure? Genuine question.
So I've actually had a similar sensation.
Here we go.
I actually saw the eye twitching. It'd be hard to say what it is. However, did you have any pain or loss of vision with the eye twitching?
No. Isabel and I just sit there and then our eyes just go beep.
Okay, but your vision wasn't affected and there wasn't pain?
No.
Okay. Then I wouldn't be too worried.
No, don't be too worried.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried. You're probably just winking at each other. I wouldn't be too worried.
we just have twitches. Anyway, what else have you got?
Rachel, yes. Rachel.
I have that as well.
Don't worry.
In my right. Not me. Rachel says, stop twitching. Are you winking at me? What are you doing?
She is. I saw her do it.
It's like a come on. It's like,
I saw her do it.
Rachel says, I have constant pins and needles in my right ankle.
Oh, you have this too. Have you written all these questions?
I know what does mine. Sitting on these stools, it cuts off
I don't
the
even
blood
know if you are
supply.
sitting on them.
When it comes to pins and needles and aches and pains, especially in the legs, this is very common. And this could be from overusage, overusage and trauma, as you know, or this can be something called restless leg syndrome, which is very, very common. And this can cause cramping and pain and aching, in, the legs, the calves, the feet, and the ankles. And
these are people, I know people who they go to bed and their legs
jump. So you have the urge and you have the inability to control the legs. And often this happens late at night or in the evenings. And this can be caused by a number of different causes. So once again, it can be medical. There can be medical causes related to restless leg syndrome. So you need to see your GP who will do a blood test and rule out stuff like possibly anemia or an imbalance of the chemical dopamine for the restless leg syndrome. And then after ruling out those causes, what it is, they'd see the severity and how bad it's affecting you. And based on that, they'd either treat you with conservative management or go on to medical management. So conservative management could be stuff like hot and cold compress, massaging the leg, putting it in some warm water, because this can often help. Or, in fact, improving your sleep pattern. So having a regular sleep pattern as well and making sure it's consistent throughout the day can help restless leg syndrome too.
We're doomed. I had restless leg syndrome when I was pregnant, and I really had a new sympathy for people with it. Every evening I was kicking and twitching.
It's actually been known to be more common in pregnant ladies when they go through that, and people in their 30s, 40s and 50s as well. So I think there's a psychological component to restless leg syndrome. A lot of the time when we investigate it, it's not often medical. When it's medical, we can treat it medically, but normally conservative management often gets rid of it.
Okay.
Richard says, I have a constant feeling of being lethargic. A lot of people identify with this. Richard said he's 53 years of age. He says, is it related to my age, or is there something I could do that could give me a burst of energy? He says he does walk, but that's the only exercise he does.
So for Richard, I'd say 53 for us, especially medicine, isn't exactly old. So I wouldn't say, just put it down to my age that I'm feeling lethargic. So when it comes down to him and being 53, what I'd suggest is make sure he does go and see his GP and book an appointment, because they will run through tests. And you'd want to make sure that you can exclude the sinister causes of chronic lethargy. So they want to look at his bloods, see if there's any balances of his electrolytes, see if he potentially has anemia, and then look for, obviously we don't want to go into C word, but possibly malignant causes as well. So because if they can exclude that, then they go straight onto conservative methods. So one, see how much is he exercising. Can he add riding a bike to that? Can he add swimming as well to that?
Yeah.
And then once again, then go look at his sleep, go look at his work-life balance and see, is it caused by that?
I automatically think diet. The amount of times my energy levels are affected by what I've eaten or drunk.
So
too much carbs.
like I said
Yeah,
before,
too many carbs, too much alcohol.
like I said before, how important 5 a day is in getting your natural sugars. For me, that boosts my energy. However, there's some stuff that can suppress your energy too, such as obviously alcohol and sometimes chronic smoking. If you have a stressful day at work, all of this stuff are lifestyle factors that we can change that you necessarily don't actually need a doctor for.
Well, we listen to you, don't we?
Yeah, I've got my fruit here. After you said you start your day with it, I'm scribbling it in the breaks.
That's what I like to see.
There's like 7 ton of fruit arrives every morning here for us to eat our way through.
Inspired by Dr.
And a few croissants, which have been demolished this morning.
Slide those to the side.
Dr. Mika, really appreciate it. Thank you very much again. That's today's Doc Slot. We're going to take a break and we're back right after this. Don't go away. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
With the time at 8:30, we're going to deliver the newspapers to you now. We begin with the Daily Telegraph, and here's the headline. It writes that the NHS waiting list will rise no matter what level of investment or reform the government is able to provide, something we've been talking this morning about in our newspaper review.
Yes, the Mirror also leading on BP's finances, which we've been talking about as well this morning, revealing that despite many families failing to pay their bills, they made a £10 billion profit.
That was 10 billion, not million.
Oh, billion. Sorry, did I read that?
No, you didn't. No, I'm just emphasising. I'm just saying, like it's hard to believe, isn't it? 10 billion. The Times, their Tories push PM to act faster on waiting lists and saying that the backlog is not, clearing the backlog's not ambitious enough. And there is Adele, 3 awards last night at the Brits. We're going to be talking about that in about 15 minutes' time.
Here's The Guardian. Tory MPs have been accused of making the debate on net zero and climate change a cultural issue.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing Judi Dench there on the front. Is that because...
Oscar noms.
Yeah, but is that for Belfast?
I think so, yeah.
I'm just trying to... can't see the paper, but yeah, I think it's to do with a nomination for Belfast. I hope it is, anyway.
It is.
Daily Mail, let's move on there. And the question, is that all we get for £12 billion? This is talking about how the NHS will be funded with the national insurance rise due in April. And it also looks at Adele, and people think she's got engaged. She's wearing a massive ring on her engagement finger.
Yeah, that is to the basketball agent Rich Paul, who there were rumours about that she might have split up from, but apparently not, if the ring is to be believed. Anyway.
Or maybe they did and she just kept the ring.
Well, that would be very sensible. She'd be a bit short of cash after she cancelled her Vegas residency. Anyway, Mike, should we start with you? Mike Parry and Kate Hoey here to take us through the papers. And Mike, you picked this story from inside the Telegraph. And look, Eamonn and I have been talking an awful lot about the Russia-Ukraine issue over recent weeks. We've seen Emmanuel Macron, first of all in Moscow and then yesterday in Kiev. What's the angle in the Telegraph today?
Well, you've just mentioned that the story's inside the Telegraph, OK? Do you know why it's moving inside the papers now? Because nothing is actually happening.
Yeah. We've got that every day we do an interview on it, we say nothing's changed.
Well, which is good in a way.
In a way it is. 120,000 troops surrounding the Ukraine, you know, from Belarus and from Russia, and massive pressure being put on. But my concern here is not that the story's gone inside. It's still a very important issue. I'm hoping that the threat of invasion is going away. But this says that Monsieur Macron might be doing a deal with Mr. Putin. If there's two men in the world I least trust, it's Mr. Emmanuel Macron, who has done his best to try and make sure Brexit never happens, despite the fact that we voted for it, and Mr. Putin, whose lifelong ambition is to restore the Soviet Union to what it used to be, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And you put those two heads together and say, oh, these guys are doing a deal to solve the Ukraine crisis. Frankly, I don't believe it. The big problem they've got here is that when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were 12 NATO countries in that part of the world. There are now 30. And amongst those 30, of course, you have the Baltic states, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, other countries like Romania, and this is what Putin is trying to stop.
Well, could I just also say, contrary to that, does it not mean that maybe Putin has a point?
Well, you make a very good point yourself, Eamonn, because what he's saying is, it's all very well for you lot to say that you can dot your NATO countries around my borders, but then you say I can't do anything to protect myself against the possibility of you incursing my country. So he has got an argument. The problem is that NATO has a passive manner of peace, and Mr. Putin doesn't believe in passivity. He believes in rattling the cage, because he thinks if he shows how strong we are... Russia's economy is about the size of Belgium, believe it or not. It's the biggest landmass in the world, right? But because so much of the wealth is concentrated in so few people, the oligarchs, most of Russia is still poor. And the economy, the GDP... size of Belgium for a country that size. So the only way that Mr. Putin has got to impress himself upon the world is not like Germany or Japan or America with wealth created by, great booming economies. It's purely military. And when I read yesterday that the Russians are now sending 6 ships into the Black Sea, I didn't know Russia still had 6 ships in their navy, honestly. They've got 1 aircraft carrier. America's got 13 aircraft carriers. That's the difference. So what I'm saying is, I don't see any great hope here for something coming off. Mr. Macron has got an election coming up next year, and he wants to just wave the flag and say, I'm the man who brought peace to Europe.
He's
I did a deal with
the
Mr.
European
Putin.
Union at the moment, isn't he?
Of course he is.
So he's also speaking in that capacity.
He wants to be the leader of Europe, you're right. Also, he's saying that I've made sure we can implement what's called the Minsk II deal. The Minsk II deal is just an arrangement for Russia to take more control of affairs in Ukraine. So I don't see how this can be anything, really to jump up and down about in terms of peace in our time.
Kate, you're looking at the front page of the Daily Telegraph.
Yes, I thought we had to discuss the reshuffle, which may not have been as big a reshuffle as people had perhaps hoped or expected. However, it was a nice little cartoon. Matt in the Daily Telegraph always gets it spot on, and he's got a lovely little cartoon, which I think you're seeing, yes. It's about the fact that Rees-Mogg, who was the leader of the House, has moved into the Cabinet Office now to be responsible for ensuring that make Brexit successful. And there's a lovely little cartoon of Earl Grey tea and cucumber sandwiches. Jacob Rees-Mogg is the new Downing Street party planner. And I think that's a little joke about the way he is very, what you would say, perhaps slightly old-fashioned English comes across. But actually, the story really is about moving. I think the key one was moving the chief whip
Who's also under investigation, we should point out, at the moment. There's a lot of questions about that yesterday.
Yes.
For Naz and the Muslim allegation that he made. And lots of people speculating that the cabinet mini reshuffle yesterday was as mini as it was, despite the calls to reform government and Downing Street in the wake of all this party stuff, was because he can't afford to lose any allies. And if he demotes people out of the cabinet, they go to the backbenches and then they start to move against him. Is that
the problem of reshuffles is that once you sack somebody, unless they really think they've got a good chance of coming back again, they actually start being a little bit rebellious.
You speaking from experience?
Absolutely. No. And I think yesterday's reshuffle was, there's another angle on it that people are saying, oh, it was all men, it was a he shuffle. But actually, when you look through the kind of lower ranks, there were lots of women being moved. For me, the most annoying thing is that we've now got a new Europe minister who's been moved. We had Chris Heaton-Harris, who'd only just got the job, who'd only just been to Northern Ireland, seen all the businessmen. Yeah. Now we've got a new Europe minister, and who's going to have to go through all the same thing. And I was thinking to myself, if I was a businessman in Northern Ireland, it's the same business people that trot out every time a minister goes over, I would say, hang on, look, we've seen you, we're not keeping doing this. So I do think that's a mistake, because he got a real grasp of it. And now he's gone off to
pastures new.
Yeah. So it's a reshuffle.
Kate, I've been reading that all this is about Boris trying to stave off what could be a very imminent challenge to his authority as early as next week. He's moving Brexiteers closer to him. He's moving pro-Boris people closer to him. I mean, is it that imminent?
I personally don't think that there will be 54 letters.
Right.
And, of course, don't forget that even if there were 54 letters and there was a vote of confidence, I think he would win it. And then nothing could happen for another year. So I think it's unlikely.
That's not the only way he could go, just to remind everyone.
Next week, so they're
yes, of course, but once the Met Office... rain bad weather on Downing Street. No, once the Met Police investigation comes back, that could
Yeah, that could be the...
I'll just give up, I think.
Your eyes twitching again. The stress. We're going to, Mike, look, this is the Times, page 23.
Yeah.
The film actor Alec Baldwin finds himself in England filming. Yeah. What's the take on this?
It's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Alton is a tiny little town. I think it's in Hampshire. I drive through it when I go down to the coast. And all of a sudden, a lady there reads that a film's being made in Alton and it stars Alec Baldwin. She can't. She thinks, well, I tell you what, I'll go into Alton and see if I can see him. 1 in a million chance. She finds him not staggering along the road, finds him walking along the road carrying a co-op bag. He'd just come out of a nearby takeaway. You can't believe it. He was with Martin Bashir.
Yeah.
So Martin Bashir...
They used to work together on TV in New York.
Absolutely. And they're getting together. And it's one of those, is it him, isn't it him? And she actually said to a friend, he looks like Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
No, it can't be. But I tell you what most amazes me, and maybe I'm being unkind, but of course Alec Baldwin is in the spotlight still because of the death of Helena Hutchins, the lady on the set of Rust, when a bullet came out of a gun Alec Baldwin was holding. We don't know why. I'm surprised he's gone back to work so quickly before the full investigation into that tragic incident over in America has been sorted out. I find it slightly distasteful.
We were discussing that yesterday, weren't we, Eamonn? Yeah. We were just saying, surely someone advising him would say, at the very least, perhaps don't be seen out and about. He was in an Indian, I think, as well.
Yeah. There's some things that they did an awful Halloween picture
with the
family,
kids, just days after.
Interviews that he's done and things, and you think, who's advising this man? But
absolutely,
but it's just very tragic. Whether he's guilty of anything or not, but it's just very tragic.
Yeah.
Let's look at page 19 of the Express, and Kate, you want to talk about
the Mile High Club?
I think the thing about this story is about a Virgin Atlantic captain who was sacked following false rumours, apparently, that he took 40 winks, had sex with a stewardess on a long-haul flight. But when you read the whole story, you really worry about the next time you're in a long-haul flight. Because according to this, he let one of the stewardesses fly for a while. He took a break. He then had sex with the stewardess. All of these things. Ultimately, of course, he was sacked. He then went to a tribunal and he's been awarded £90,000. But, of course, originally he wanted he was trying to get £2.4 million. So I
sorry.
think it shows that perhaps there was something in it, but not quite.
Am I missing something? So he's been awarded £90,000 for going and having sex with an air hostess whilst not flying an aircraft.
This is a tribunal said that Virgin Atlantic's argument that there were long-standing concerns about Captain Loss's performance, it was undocumented and unsubstantiated. So it's like all these tribunals, in the end, it can be just so arbitrary depending on who's running the tribunal, what the evidence is, and what may appear to be absolutely true. You have to prove it in a way that... And so he's got £90,000, but I think Virgin Atlantic might be putting in some cameras in there.
Well, it makes me feel, Virgin Atlantic's a bit more fun than some of the airlines that fly across the...
sniggering through that.
Flying across the Atlantic. But actually, the details about it are that when they decided he might not be fit for flying anymore, they gave him some aptitude tests, and he failed them. But he won the case because he said... They should not have given me the aptitude test. That was unfair. The whole thing's really, really bizarre. But isn't the world of transatlantic flying very glamorous? I love it. I mean, Eamonn probably flown over the Atlantic more times than I have, but I love getting on a plane at Heathrow and flying across to America, particularly if I've got a seat that's in business or
I was going to say, Mike,
that makes all the difference. Yeah, there's nothing worse than being in economy.
I find it the most glamorous world. The beautiful stewardesses, the chaps in their uniforms, the pilots and all that. I love that world. And to think all this is going on behind the scenes only makes me think I must have been missing out on something all these years.
You're wishing you were a pilot.
You go to the Mail and you've got a story about gambling and addiction there from a former Conservative councillor.
Yeah, this is an incredible story, and it's one of those stories that the Mail do so well. They find a story, it's just happened at Southwark Crown Court, you know what I mean, and they find out that this guy's been jailed for 6 years because he's been found guilty of fraud, and the sum involved is £15 million. Then they go and find the background to it all. It's an astonishing story. This guy ran his own financial advisory business. They lived in a lovely house, sort of a country house in the home counties. When all of a sudden, a team of police would knock on the door in the morning, and the lady answers the phone, Hannah David, who lives there, answers the door, and there's 3 policemen. Where's your husband? We want to search the house and all that. They discovered he's embezzled £15 million from the clients who looked upon him to invest their money.
Yeah.
Some of them had money with him for 10 or 12 years. The guy was a gambling addict, and he was spending up to £240,000 a day gambling, on phones or laptops in his office.
£250,000 a day.
On one day, he spent 240,000, but he ran up 15 million quid. And of course, it turns out it was a Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme means that when Eamonn gives me £100 today, I take £20 of that and give it to another client and say, oh, that's interest on the money you've given me from that last month. It's just a Ponzi scheme, builds up. It all crashes down when only one person can come in and say, I want my money back, please. There is no money. It's all stolen money. Yeah. So he went to jail for 6 years. He served 3. He's come out. But the real horror story behind this, as Kate and I were discussing earlier, is that the family is smashed to pieces. The home's gone. The children have nowhere to live. The wife is suffering terrible depression. It's just a horrendous story of how chronic gambling addiction...
Well, also quite aside from his family, what about all the people whose money he embezzled?
Well,
those families all ruined.
The Mail didn't get as far as to finding the victims, but you're absolutely right, Isabel. Some people will have put their life savings with this guy and saying, because he was offering high returns, you see, he was offering 8% returns. Now, we all know there's no 8% returns these days, but if the guy is, a very convincing financial advisor, I get you 8%. You give people money, don't you? You say, well, that's great. I'm smarter than the average bear.
Mike? Get under the bed.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Kate. Thank you very much indeed, Kate Hoey and Mike Parry there with your newspapers on this Wednesday.
Now, you might remember here on Breakfast, we've been talking about the mysterious deaths of tens of thousands of crabs and lobsters on Teesside's coastline.
Well, the government says algae caused the deaths, but those in the fishing industry don't believe that. Our North East of England reporter Rachel Sweeney with this.
Fishermen have dismissed the government's concluded investigation into the deaths of tens of thousands of crabs and lobsters. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs says toxin-producing algal blooms are to blame. But the North East Fishing Collective says that's utter rubbish, and they've paid for an independent investigation.
We got the CFAS chemical analyses, and I went through that, and CFAS had done a fairly good job on analysing crab samples, a little bit of water and a little bit of sediment sample for a whole range of chemicals. The majority of those chemicals were present at levels of less than 1 milligram to the litre. Some chemicals were present at 10 or less milligrams to the litre, and one chemical called pyridine was there in the impacted crabs in the impact area at levels of up to 430 milligrams to the litre.
And this is something the National Federation of Fishermen's Associations wants looking into.
I think the independent report that's been produced makes some interesting comparisons. Particularly, I thought the comparison with Cornwall, with crab from Cornwall, which shows much lower levels of pyridine, well, that needs explaining.
DEFRA ruled out dredging, sewage, chemical pollution and undersea cabling. A spokesperson said, "Our sampling established that no pyridine was present in the water or sediment samples we collected, but was detected in crab tissue from both impacted areas and non-impacted areas elsewhere in the country." As such, any levels detected in crab tissue are likely to be linked to biological processes and not necessarily from the environment. Mr. Dear Jones believes the deaths began at Teesside Freeport, the site hailed as of key importance in the government's levelling up agenda.
It is now being geared up to take bigger ships, so they're having to dredge the channels deeper than they have ever been dredged before to get the bigger ships in, and they may well be also dredging dockside sites in order to make berths for ships bigger than they've ever had in before. They don't know when this is going to damn well stop, these fishermen, so that's the root of their frustration. They're sitting there, they're paying for the maintenance of the boat, they've paid their licences to fish for the year, and they can't fish and they can't sell anything. And it's all dying in front of them.
The fishing community is now calling for a halt to dredging operations. DEFRA's investigation is concluded, but the independent investigation continues. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
Thank you for that update, Rachel.
OK, let's turn our attention to the Brit Awards. All the juice from the red carpet last night. Of course, the biggest night for the British music industry, a showcase for UK talent on the worldwide
Talking
stage.
about talent.
Yeah.
Not necessarily musical, but she's
Well, I
at an
suspect.
Essex recording studio. She looks like a pop star, but can't she sing like one? There's our reporter, Ellie Costello, with the day after, the night before. Good morning, Ellie.
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. I don't know about sounding like a pop star, but I've been trying my best this morning, haven't I, Keith? This is Keith Gannon. He is the owner of the Essex Recording Studios. It's been here for 5 years, and we've been here all morning discussing all of the drama from the Brits last night. We've been getting reaction from Keith, who is a music industry exec. You know all about the music industry. What did you make of the Brits last night, Keith?
I loved it. It's great seeing everybody come out of lockdown. 2 years, they haven't been able to tour. They've been writing, they've been recording, and we've seen the fruits of that labor last night. Really exciting stuff.
Really exciting stuff. And stand-up performances for you?
Well, you know what? I have to say I loved Dave at the end with that Les Paul with the fire shooting out of it. I didn't even know he could play guitar. That's crazy.
Who knew? And you know guitars better than anyone.
I do. We have the largest guitar collection in the country here. We got over 300 of them. And yeah, it's great to see the return of guitar-based music coming out of lockdown.
Yeah, on the international stage at the Brits. That's just what we like to hear. And you have had some amazing people in this studio, haven't you?
Yeah, we just mixed on the new Darkness album. We've had Piston, and we've got a very exciting artist to share with you guys. Viral sensation Charlotte Albury.
Yes, and we can see Charlotte Albury just through the glass there. We'll give her a little wave. Now, you may recognise Charlotte. She went super viral in February 2020, just before the pandemic, for singing Shallow in a subway station. It went so viral, didn't it? She was flown to LA on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Let's take a quick look at that clip of what made Charlotte famous.
Tell me something, girl. Are you happy in this modern world?
Or do you need more?
Wow.
Keep going. So
so hardcore.
Wow, you're really good. Keep going.
I'm off the deep end, watch as I dive in. I'll never meet the ground.
Wow.
Crash through the surface where they can't hurt us. We're far from the shallow now.
You're brilliant. Well done. Are you a singer?
Gaga and what's his name?
Oh, the pipes on Charlotte are just incredible, aren't they? And I'm thrilled to say that she is live with us now on TV and radio. This is Charlotte Aubrey, viral sensation. We just heard that amazing clip that made you mega famous. Tell us about that moment for you.
Oh, it was amazing. So, yeah, everything went viral. And then the pandemic hit, so it was amazing. And then, you know, there was ups and downs. And then, yeah, I've just been working on my album from there and, yeah, just making music.
Yeah, so you made a positive out of a negative. You came to the studio, you wrote your music, and you've been recording here at the Essex Recording Studios. So you're working on your debut album. What is the sound that we're expecting from you?
It's going to be like an 80s vibe. I'm going to have some big ballads on there as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a mix.
Yeah, we've heard that there's a lot of dancing going on in the music studio here whilst you've been rehearsing. And you're the absolute package. You've got the looks, you've got the talent. We're going to hear you sing very shortly. But the reason we're here today is we are talking about the Brits. Yeah. Did you watch the Brits last night?
I certainly did, yes.
OK, so who were the standout performances for you?
Well, obviously, I love Adele, Anne-Marie. Ed Sheeran was great. Yeah, all round, they were all wicked.
Yeah, some real British talent, and we have to talk about Anne-Marie, don't we? Because what a professional! If you did manage to miss this last night, she actually fell down the stairs, didn't she? That must be a performer's nightmare. Got straight back up.
She did, yeah. I thought she handled that great. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. She just got straight back up. It was like it didn't even happen. She was brilliant.
Do you think you'd be able to do that, Charlotte?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know.
Let's hope so, let's hope so. And what do you make about Adele? So she scooped Best Single, Best Album, Best Artist. What was interesting is they've taken the genders, haven't they, away from that Best Artist category. It's no longer Best Female, Best Male. It's now just Best Artist. And when Adele picked up that award, she did say she understood why it was happening, but she was so proud to be a female artist and she loved being a woman. What do you make of that?
I just think Adele's great. I think, you know, I mean, empowerment of women, you know, it's great. So she's doing her thing, and it's great how Adele can sort of go away and come back, and then she just does great every time, doesn't she? She's Adele, so
she is, and it's just amazing, isn't she? She sat on that piano yesterday and just absolutely captivated the audience, and everybody else had huge light shows. It's just her and her voice, isn't it?
Oh, she's amazing.
She really
the voice,
is,
isn't she? So.
She really is. Well, Charlotte, you're going to prepare for us now. You're going to sing a little bit. This is a TV and radio exclusive. Charlotte is going to sing a little snip from her latest and newest album. Keith, I want to bring you in at this point because Keith is, of course, a music industry exec, and he's going to tell us if he thinks Charlotte can make it. So, Charlotte, do you think Brits are on the horizon for you? Is that something that you'd like to see happening in your career?
Yeah, I'd love that. Fingers crossed, yeah, that'd be amazing.
I think you could absolutely smash it out of the park. What do you make, Keith? You're the expert.
I'm telling you what, I think we are looking at our 2023 Brit Breakthrough Artist right here. Charlotte's got Whitney Houston pipes, vocals for days, and I think you'll be impressed. Very much.
And how happy are you to have her at Essex Recording Studios? You must feel like this is just such an amazing signing.
You know what? This is what we live for. This is a highlight of our career for sure. And there is no doubt you are going to smash it.
Yeah.
So, Charlotte, when can we expect the new album? Tell us at home.
Well, I'd like it to be August, hopefully a bit sooner. It was meant to be January, so I ran out of time. But I want to make sure I've got enough time to get it finished.
But, you know, we've got to make it perfect, haven't we? And it's going to be absolutely worth the wait. Well, thank you, both of you, for having us at Essex Recording Studios this morning. We have had the best time. Keith, thank you for your insight this morning. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to leave you. Take it away. Eamonn and Isabel, we're going to let Charlotte now give us an a cappella version, a sneak peek of her upcoming album. Take it away, Charlotte.
Thank you.
I wanna live in the moment. Can you see the stars shine? Just promise me. Fight for love. Ooh, fight for love. Fight for love. Fight for love.
What a voice. Effortless.
Very
What
good.
a voice. Well done.
Very good. I've got goosebumps from that. Absolutely amazing. That was Charlotte Albury. Of course, she went viral, as Ellie was telling us, after she was caught singing in the Shallows, wasn't it? On the
I thought
tube.
you were going to say singing in the shower.
No,
Don't we
in
all
the
sing in
Shallow,
the shower
that
like
song
that?
Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga performed. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Anyway.
Do you sing in the shower?
Yes, of course.
What do you
yeah,
sing?
and in the car, in the Shallows, everything.
What do you sing? Everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you sing?
I do a lot of Elvis. A lot of Johnny Cash.
Give us an example.
No.
Come on.
No, I'm too.
No. Okay, not in
When
the
I
mood.
said
Okay.
I needed you, you said you would always stay.
It's the facial expressions as well.
Who changed but you. And now we've gone away because it's time to go to the top of the hour. We'll see you right after.
Oh, so good.
You. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
NHS waiting lists in England will not start to fall for at least 2 years and may double, according to the Health Secretary.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock. It's Wednesday, February the 9th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Top stories for you this morning. Sajid Javid pledges to cut waiting times to fewer than 12 months by 2025. But do the government's plans go far enough?
A petition's gained 53,000 signatures calling on the West Ham footballer Kurt Zouma to face justice after he was caught on camera kicking and slapping his cat.
In a statement, the 27-year-old said he was deeply sorry over the incident. Police have now said they are investigating.
Queen of the Brits, Adele, is crowned Artist of the Year following the Brit Awards decision to remove gendered categories.
We'll be joined by singer and reality star Talia Storm very shortly, who was at the Brits last night. Well, she was there, her clothes just didn't arrive in time.
OK, our top story this hour. The Health Secretary is warning NHS waiting lists in England will not start to fall for at least 2 years and may start doubling during that time.
Well, Sajid Javid warned that the backlog may get worse despite COVID pressure receding. GB News political correspondent Tom Harwood joins us now in the studio with his take on this. Tom.
Well, it was pretty bleak listening yesterday in the Commons from the Health Secretary. Some really hard truths being said. No rosy picture, really, because, of course, we've seen 2 years where people have been putting off surgeries, where surgeries have been not allowed to go forward in many cases because of these lockdown rules and because of COVID pressure on the health service as well. Around 10 million appointments are thought to have been missed over that time. And so that number is sort of baked into the system and will be filtering through the system for the next couple of years, which is why this will get worse before it gets better. And the Health Secretary was pretty candid about that, saying that things will only start to reduce in a few years' time, despite this package of measures that is being brought forward. And the packet of measures is pretty substantial. It's funded by this £12 billion national insurance tax hike that's coming in from April. And it's really aiming at trying to find the best way to increase capacity in the system, but also move people around the country. So there are some areas with more pressure, some areas with less pressure, greater transparency between hospitals, and moving patients to the areas that are under the least pressure at any one time.
OK, so that's the health service. The way the paper's reporting it, they're sort of turning it into pressure on the Prime Minister. Interesting that they haven't focused in on Sajid Javid in all of this, although he was sort of very honest, as you say, yesterday. He held on to his job. A little bit of a mini reshuffle yesterday in the Cabinet. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, they say about reshuffles that the more seismic the reshuffles are, the more moves that are made, the more the Prime Minister is trying to stamp his authority. The fact that very few moves were made yesterday, the fact that no one lost their job, people made sideways moves, some people gained extra jobs, the size of the Cabinet has grown. That's potentially a sign of a weaker Prime Minister. He can't afford to lose any friends right now.
Yeah, or make any more enemies.
Or make any more enemies, absolutely. But some important changes. There's a new chief whip, a Brexiteer, Chris Heaton-Harris, someone who's close to the backbenches of the Conservative Party, and the chief whip has become the leader of the Commons, and the former leader of the Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg, has now moved to a new cabinet position, newly created, a minister in charge of finding opportunities from Brexit.
Right man for the job?
Certainly, it seems like he is someone who has been speaking up for Brexit in a way that many around the cabinet table probably haven't had their minds on so much for the last 2 years. And that voice has been missing around the cabinet table since Lord Frost resigned at the end of last year as well. Finding a new impetus to pursue the promise of Brexit. Of course, Brexit doesn't give you policy suggestions in and of itself. What Brexit does is give you the policy levers, and you can choose to pull them or not choose to pull them. And the fact is that for the last 2 years, many of these policy levers, these areas of policy that the government now has control over, whether it's VAT or the whole regulatory structure of the country, the government hasn't really touched. They're able to now, and it's Jacob Rees-Mogg's job to tell the government or to suggest to the government which of those levers they should pull.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom. Appreciate your take on things. Tom with his own show from 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get up to date with the other news affecting you today. Police have started cracking down on truckers protesting vaccine mandates in the Canadian capital, Ottawa.
Vehicles have been immobilised and thousands of litres of fuel seized as the protest approaches the end of its second week. Kyle Kemper, who's the brother of the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, told GB News the movement is peaceful.
They try and slander the entire movement. But the reality on the streets, I've been talking to these truckers, I've been talking to people, they're cleaning up the streets, crime is down, they're sharing, there's community, there's dancing, there's high vibration, there's music, and they just want our freedom back. They want the true North, strong and free is what Canada is known as.
Documents reveal the Foreign Office as being the target of what they're calling a serious cyber attack. It's not clear who was responsible or the effects, but security firm BAE Systems carried out work in January, costing just under £470,000.
An online petition calling for the West Ham defender Kurt Zuma to be prosecuted over alleged animal cruelty and have all his animals removed has now received over 79,000 signatures. Zuma was forced to apologise yesterday after a video surfaced online of him kicking and slapping his cat.
More than 1 in 6 speeding fines in England and Wales were cancelled in the 12 months to March last year. The RAC says 400,000 cases were dismissed due to reasons including faulty speed cameras and a lack of resources to bring cases to court.
Many British families are cancelling their half-term breaks to Spain due to strict vaccine rules for children. All travellers to mainland Spain and the Canary Islands aged 12 and over have to be double vaccinated. Now, it's the morning after the night before. The Brit Awards returned to London's O2 Arena last night with a few differences as the annual ceremony scrapped its male and female award categories.
Well, it's fair to say that one winner was not very happy with that decision.
Also, I understand why the name of this award has changed, but I really love being a woman and being a female artist. I do. I'm really proud of us. I really, really am. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, joining us in the studio, and she was there last night, Talia Storm was at the Brits, and very lovely to have you here today. I see you found your clothes again.
I found my clothes, OK? I think I look like an air hostess right now, but it's early. I've had, no sleep, but happy to be back.
We'll try and show some pictures of Talia on the red carpet last night, if we have them. There she is. Were you cold?
Absolutely not. This is showbiz, baby.
That was Thierry Mugler. Just to explain to people who might not follow fashion closely why you decided to wear him last night.
Well, what did she wear? What is it? What are you wearing?
First of all, this outfit was art, OK?
Art.
This outfit was art.
Okay.
And obviously he's just passed away. I think he's one of the most incredible pioneers of fashion. He always just puts, I think, females, representing their bodies, celebrating, sexy figures, and just, maybe you remember Kim Kardashian's very famous Met Gala outfit. That was Thierry Mugler. I think he's
So what is
incredible.
it? Is it a bikini or is it a big pair of tights? What?
It is a big pair of tights, essentially. Maybe a bit of a leotard. Maybe
A unitard, was it?
Yeah. It's, you know what? We'll go with that.
OK,
Well,
perfect.
it's not everybody who could have worn it or carried it off.
Thank you.
And what little bit of it there was, you wore it very well.
I did actually have a big furry coat. Not that anyone cared about the coat, but there was a coat, guys.
There was a coat. OK, we'll take your word
your
for
mother
it.
out on that soon, won't we?
She's actually sad she's not here. She was meant to be there last night, but she's doing a swimwear line. So maybe that's where I get it from.
Oh, I love it. Listen, Talia, I want to talk to you about what Adele was saying there, because, of course, this is the first ever Brits where the female artist and the male artist categories was done away with. Adele, obviously, came through and won in that category, but she made that comment, didn't she? She said she actually thinks it's sad. She really loves being a female artist. As a female artist yourself, do you share? Were you cheering when she said that?
I think Adele is incredible. I love being a female artist. I think she said it perfectly. Of course, it's amazing that we're celebrating the music and not necessarily a label. But of course, I love being a female. I love releasing and celebrating that. But then again, 10 out of the 15 awards went to females. So last night was the night of the females, and Adele swooping 3 of the 4 major awards, incredible. But again, when we go forward next year, is it going to be another 10 females, or are we going to have more guys?
Do you think it gives more people more of a share in the spoils and the rewards if you have male and if you have female categories as opposed to one category?
Well, yeah, definitely. They shook up a few different of the categories. For instance, I sing R&B, and they've merged the R&B and pop category. Now, as an R&B singer, R&B and pop are very different. So there's an incredible singer called Sinead Harnett, which I think dominated the charts this year, that probably would have won the R&B award. But now R&B and pop are just one. So, when you're fighting against Dua Lipa, obviously that's a completely different ball game. So I think I think we definitely have to keep an eye on it. But again, they're just trying to do the best for the music. We're trying to celebrate the music and what the music stands for. So if it is just all about, the song at the end of the day, then maybe we just have to respect that.
What did you make of the performances last night? We heard from our showbiz correspondent earlier that Ed Sheeran did a bit of a strange opener. Did you agree? And what was your take on Little Sims's performance?
I thought Ed is brilliant. I think that is an artist. He turned his song into a rock song. I mean, that's what you want from the Brits. You don't want the version of the song that's on Spotify. I want something different. I thought Dave was incredible. I think he's one of my favourite performers ever. I think you saw him up there with his guitar. Who even knew he played the guitar? And back in, was it 2020, he was on the stage playing his piano, and now he's on there playing the guitar. Like, that is something that, when I was younger, I learned the piano in lockdown because I was obsessed with Dave. Like, I think that's the kind of role model you want. You want to turn on the TV and be like, wow, I need to sit and do 5 hours a day because I want to do that. So I think, I thought last night's Little Sims phenomenal. I think as an artist, lyricist, it's pure poetry. And I think just what an amazing night to celebrate British talent.
And, you know, as an artist yourself, I mean, you know all about the performance. People should be looking up to you. But when you're in a room like that, do you become a fan?
Oh my goodness, of course.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I'm a very new artist. You know, I started when I was 13 when I opened for Elton John, but like, you know, I'm still at the very beginning. So of course one day I dreamed to be up there. But for last night, I was just taking it all in. I was just like, these are my idols. These are legends. Ed Sheeran is a legend. Adele is a legend. And I think the way they carry themselves, they're also friendly and nice. I think that's a role model.
Were you up close to them on the red carpet? And if so, did you get the wobbly knee thing?
I think I didn't get the wobbly knee thing.
No,
I think I was
didn't
probably
get
just
nervous.
like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
I saw, who was on the red carpet? I think KSI. Have you heard of KSI the rapper? He was on the same time as me. And I think Anne-Marie came shortly after.
Oh, let's talk about Anne-Marie, because, of course, she had that fall on stage. I think we've got pictures. Hopefully we can show you those. And showed really the quality of her... Well, just her true quality. She was able to sort of carry on.
I think we should celebrate the fact that she was performing live.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you know how many artists don't perform live and then she's falling and getting back up? First of all, the ankle looked like it snapped and she is still going. So I think she's one of the greatest. And this is something that I aspire to be. You know, Anne-Marie, the career didn't happen overnight. She's a global superstar now, but it took years. And I think that's what I love about the Brits, really celebrating these artists that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to go viral on TikTok to be that kind of star. You know, put in the time and you can get there. And I think you can tell that she is an artist and experienced and just a performer.
Well, Muhammad Ali used to say, it's not being knocked down is the problem, it's getting back up again. And she proved that. That's what it's all about.
It's also kind of like Brits tradition now, isn't it, for someone to have an upset?
Madonna,
it was Madonna
of
all those
course.
years ago. Yeah, it was awful, bless her. And she just carried on, didn't she? Although I felt for whoever it was that tripped her up, I'm pretty sure they got the straight off the show.
So at the beginning, like that was the very first 3 seconds of Anne-Marie's performance. She's on the floor.
I know. Everyone's nightmare, I'd imagine.
My nightmare. Wow.
Yeah, very good. So, will there be any more Housewives of Jersey, do we know?
Oh, well, I'm telling you, my mum is so sad she's not here. She was just texting me. She was meant to be my +1 last night. She is in Jersey. I think...
Talia's mum is Tessa Hartman from Housewives of Jersey.
Real Housewives of Jersey. She's keeping busy because she's launching their swimwear line. My dad's an artist and he's printed all like the pieces on the art on the swimsuit. So my mum is just every minute she just doesn't stop working. Maybe that's where I get it from. But Housewives, just keep your eyes peeled. And they are convincing her, trying to get her back from series 3. But we just have to wait and see what the woman does.
Yeah, Talia, thank you very much for
to have
joining
you
us
in.
in the picture.
Go
for
get
all
some
those
sleep
things.
after that late night. We appreciate you coming in after the night
Very
before.
much appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, we do.
There are those who wouldn't. It has to be said. Very professional.
We showed up.
Very professional of you. You see, you have Isabel would go out on a Thursday night, but she wouldn't show up on Friday.
That's such nonsense. I'm actually at Awards tomorrow night, and I will be in on Friday morning, just to clarify.
Awards are you at tomorrow night?
Broadcast Awards. Yeah,
You never invited me. You never invited me
It's
to
not
those.
up to me.
Yeah.
I would love to invite you, but
No, it's always Eamonn, bring me somewhere, bring me to places and all. And then just, no, don't need him now.
I'd
Don't
love
need
you
him
to
for
come.
those.
Come with me. Let's go together.
No, professionally, I want to be up ready for Friday's programme. Anyway.
Orcs. Let's
In
take
a moment,
break.
we're going to continue the showbiz talk. We've got Hannah Hope from The Sun on Sunday with more showbiz updates right after this. Don't go away. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube. You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Just want to continue bringing the atmosphere of the Brits and what happened behind the scenes. Who better to know than Hannah Hope from the Sun on Sunday there. And you get access all areas, do you?
Well, I don't actually get access all areas, but that doesn't stop me, Eamonn. I snuck backstage. And I can tell you, I did wander past Adele's dressing room and it smelled amazing. Obviously, she had the biggest dressing room in the house. She lit sandalwood, which is very expensive. Yeah, so it smelled gorgeous. And after she won the award, she said that she wanted to go and get McDonald's. And I did see some lackeys coming in with bags of McDonald's. So she's still Brit at heart, isn't she?
I love that about her. We've got to love Adele.
It's the sort of diet you want to be on, isn't it?
OK, give us some more backstage goss then. So that was Adele. Were you able to do a bit of red carpet sort of?
Well, the red carpet was on lockdown because of COVID, but I did talk to a few of the stars. They were quite strict on who they would let on the red carpet, actually. It was meant to be only nominees, and Talia did really well getting on because they wouldn't let a lot of the reality stars on the red carpet.
I saw Zoe McDermott. She managed to sneak in, reality star.
I know.
So the less clothes you wore, the more likely you were to be on the red carpet.
I think that's the way forward, yes. Yeah. So next time, Eamonn.
Maybe not.
Unitard.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
But no, it was an amazing evening. And as we know, it was all about Adele. And I think that, you know, she did really well hitting back at the Woke Award and doing exactly what we expect her to do. And this is why we love her, to speak out saying, you know, I don't agree with it being... Well, she said that, you know, she's proud to be a woman.
She said she understood why they'd done it, but that she loved being a female artist, didn't she? And I love... She also came out and paid tribute not only to her little boy, but to her ex-husband, which I thought was interesting because she basically slates him and has made a fortune out of it in her album.
No, it's the least she can do, isn't it, really, to dedicate a Brit Award to him. So, yeah, no, she was as honest as ever, and, yeah, I saw her enjoying a glass of wine as well. So I think, you know, she had a good night.
Well, we talked about her ex-husband there. Is there a husband-to-be?
Yeah.
Because the pictures in the papers today saying she's wearing an engagement ring.
Yes, she was wearing a huge sparkler on her wedding finger. Yeah. And I think it was a statement out there saying, things are all fine with my fella, Rich Paul. I mean, look, we don't know if she's 100% engaged, but she's certainly putting a point out there and making a message.
Mm-hmm. Talking about a message, when Anne-Marie fell down those stairs at the start, when you were watching that, how did you feel? Did you think she wasn't going to get back up?
It reminded me of 2015 when Madonna had her fall. And I actually thought Anne-Marie did so well. I thought she took it in her stride. I mean, to be honest, blink and you miss it, to be honest. She carried on singing. There wasn't even a quiver in her voice. It shows that she's a true professional.
Yeah.
And once you've tripped on stage to a live performance, I think you can do anything.
It is every performer's worst nightmare, isn't it? And actually to have all of the industry, all of the agents, all of your peers, all of the competition. It's not just like an audience of your fans, it's everyone you're in competition with. Yeah, a nightmare, but like you said, she did come out with
Let's talk about the Academy Awards. Nominations revealed yesterday.
Yes, so it was a huge sweep up for June. The Power of the Dog and Benedict Cumberbatch, our very own Brit, has been nominated for Best Actor alongside Will Smith, fellow Brit Andrew Garfield, Denzel Washington and Javier Bardem. It's a little bit of a snub, some people think, for the Belfast movie, Catriona Balfe and Jamie Dornan both didn't get nominations.
Yeah, but Dame Judi Dench and Kenneth Branagh, so it can't be a snub for Belfast.
Well, exactly. I mean, Dame Judi Dench is up for her 8th nomination at the age of 87. So fingers crossed for Dame Judi. So yeah, hopefully that does well. And yeah, they still haven't announced who's going to be presenting the Oscars, but that's happening later this month.
And it's going to be back in person, is it?
Yeah, it's going to be an event held in LA, and yeah, an all-person event. So it should be good. I mean, anything's going to be better than last year.
We've missed it, haven't we?
I just wonder, between all of us, have we seen any of these films?
I can tell you now, no, I haven't seen any.
No, I haven't seen any of them. I'd like to have seen I have seen Belfast. I'd like to see West Side Story.
Me too. I'd like to see all of them.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen West Side Story. Also, Spencer's amazing. Kirsten Stewart's been nominated quite rightly for playing Princess Diana. I think she was snubbed in the BAFTAs for that. So I'd like to see her win an award for playing Princess Diana.
As well for that, yeah. So the Oscars are going to take place 27th of March, at the end of March. That's a Sunday. So there for that. But as regards Belfast, it's funny. I wonder, Judi Dench playing somebody from Belfast, and she's not from Belfast. You know what everybody talks about today, whether Helen Mirren should play Golda Meir or not. It's very funny that Judi Dench is being nominated for playing.
As a Belfast man, would that bother you? I'm actually... If it's about acting...
Yes.
If someone can actually convince an audience that they are something which they're not, which is not...
Yes, but let me just say,
as a non-Belfast person, I think it's all the more impressive.
Nobody ever gets our accent. They think, oh, there's Judi Dench in a Belfast accent. No, it's not.
Hi, no, Brian, hi.
No, I didn't say she wasn't very good. I said I think she was very endearing, but it wasn't a Belfast accent. It was some sort of concoction of Irish accent.
Right.
But, no, I mean, the film itself, I mean, Branagh didn't get nominated for Best Director, did he?
No.
He
oh, right, OK.
Which I think's a pity, because I do think the man is a genius. But Jamie Dornan was superb in it. I don't know if that's Oscar standard, but his singing was very, very good. And Catriona Balfe, just beautiful as his wife in this. Absolutely just endearing. You couldn't help but love her throughout all of that. But there you are. But West Side Story, that's the one's going to be on my list to watch.
Yeah, I need some fodder, so that gives me lots of inspiration.
And also, Being the Ricardos, that's also on Amazon Prime, so you can watch that at home. You don't have to go to the cinema now to watch all these movies, which is quite good.
What's that film?
Being the Ricardos. You've got Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem, who've both been nominated.
Oh.
So, yeah, so you can watch it from the comfort.
So it's a TV film or a TV series?
It's a film that's on Amazon Prime, so it's not all of them getting cinema
release.
Exactly. So,
yeah, gotcha.
GBViews, James has emailed in. The Brit Awards felt a bit underwhelming, if you ask me. They completely destroyed the categories, and some artists who deserve awards will never win because of this.
Well, there's no doubt, Hannah, it has changed as a ceremony, maybe just evolved rather than anything.
There was a lot of commentary as well about the fact that there were only black presenters on the red carpet and of the awards. It was just a totally new look.
It was a new look, and like Eamonn says, it was evolving. But we are seeing. I'm sure it will go. It will carry on evolving, and there will always be black presenters. We'll see all different races presenting, which is really positive. And I think as well about the actual awards, we saw new categories. So Best Dance Act, Best R&B. So we're actually getting new genres of music highlighted that haven't been highlighted previously. And they brought out Liam Gallagher, who performed a great rock and roll set. So you still have got that Brits of old there.
Very good. And how does it feel coming in here the morning after the night before?
Oh, I'm perky as ever, Eamonn.
Perky as ever, you're absolutely
right. Part of the job for you, isn't
it?
Love it.
Perky as,
Hannah
that's the perky as ever, Hannah Hope. Thank you from the Sun on Sunday. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for watching today. We've been on air from 6 o'clock and being fed a lot of your opinions, a lot of your views on the news, which hopefully we've tried to reflect throughout the programme today.
Yes, just to finish on, should we finish on some GBViews? We've got time. 10 seconds now. We'll leave it there. We'll see you again from 6 o'clock tomorrow. Do stay tuned our way. Tom Harwood with the briefing is up next. But first, here's a quick break.
Hello, good morning. I'm Aidan McGivern and here's your latest forecast. It's going to stay cloudy and mild in the south today with brighter weather but colder conditions elsewhere and further blustery showers for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The weather front that stuck around yesterday across northern England, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland is now finally sinking south. That means there's a zone of cloudy and occasionally damp weather affecting Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia first thing before eventually that pushes into southern counties of England. For a time, some sunshine ahead of that, but it does cloud over in the far southeast. Meanwhile, brighter skies follow for much of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and for Scotland, Northern Ireland, another day of keen winds and heavy showers in places. Those showers falling as sleet and snow over hills, but perhaps even to lower levels at times for the north and northwest of Scotland, where it will feel cold. Highs of 3 to 5 Celsius.